Around the world and across Ghana's 16 regions, you're listening to me, Sweetie Abochi, welcoming you to the brand new day on the AM show. Of course, I believe most people around the world are resuming work. It's business back as usual this morning because the holidays are officially over. So quickly, let me tell you what we have lined up for you today for the AM show. First, we'll start by serving you the AM news. And then after that, we'll sit with our guests to review the newspapers. Dr. Dixon Adumakukisi is MP for Anya Soutum, and James Kofi Annan is 2024 NDC parliamentary candidate for Futu. He wasn't able to unseat Apenyo Makin. They are both joining us to review the newspapers. And then we'll bring you AM Sports right after, and of course, our big stories. And there's a lot happening for our big stories today, all in the democratic dispensation of this country. Of course, first, we'll look at those disputed constituencies that we thought had been concluded on. But is it the end yet? The EC has declared the NPP parliamentary candidate as winners of Tema Central, Okankwe Central, and Techiman South. But still, looks like there's still some more work to be done because we'll speak to Dr. Rashid Tanko Computer, and he's Deputy Director of Election and IT for the NDC. And then we'll speak to Dr. Kwekwajiman Budu. He's Dean of Gimpa School of Law, and to help us put that in perspective. After that, we'll move to Parliament proper because today Parliament ends and begins in a matter of hours between those two events. The current Parliament will exit not before they elect the Speaker of Parliament, and we know that the President-elect John Dramani Mahama has written to the NDC MPs mandating them to retain Alban Kingsford Sumana Bagbin as the Speaker of Parliament for the 9th Parliament. And we'll discuss that as well with our guest. Dr. Kwame Asasante is political scientist and a lecturer at University of Ghana. Dr. Saad Iddrisu is an economist. Dr. John Osaikopon, of course, is a CDD fellow. And Clement Akolo is communications director for Parliamentary Network Africa. And our parliamentary affairs correspondent, Kwekwa Asante, will as well be here with us to bring us some details. And then, of course, Kofi J, our data analyst and researcher, will join the conversation. It's a great lineup this morning, so you want to stay with us. And then finally, we look at the preparations, really, for the swearing in. We know that all hands are on deck, and the people will be playing various roles on the inauguration day. In fact, when you go around that area, the lampposts and roads leading to the Black Star Square have been draped in the colors of Ghana, red, yellow, green, creating a powerful visual of display of national pride. It just makes you feel good to be a Ghanaian, doesn't it? And then, of course, we bring you some updates on that Kantamanto fire, because guess what? Traders are rebuilding their stalls to restart business. We've got the latest on that as well on the AM show, so you want to stay with us. Folks, I'm Sweetie Abochi, and as always, it is my absolute pleasure to serve you this 4-hour package. The big question on our mind, though, as I leave you with this, is that on a scale of 1 to 10, how did your current member of parliament serve his or her tenure? Share your thoughts with us on social media with the hashtag AM show, and then we'll get a conversation going. But quickly, let's start with the AM news now. Please stay. This is the AM news. Let's get into the details, starting with the New Patriotic Party parliamentary candidates for Tema Central, Okankwe Central, and Techiman South have been declared winners of their respective polls after the Electoral Commission was ordered by the Accra High Court to collate outstanding polling station results in those constituencies. The EC, however, suspended collation of results from the Ablekuma North constituency, and the Commission arrived at that decision to allow its officials to authenticate the scanned copies of results from 20 polling stations. Kenejesi has more in this report.
After declaring the parliamentary results for Okankwe Central, Tema Central, and Techiman South, the Electoral Commission has suspended the collation of Ablekuma North constituency. The reason? It says it has noticed some inconsistencies in some 20 pink sheet results that have been provided by the various parties.
Now, we were level 62 from the return of the report. After doing the collaboration with the two parties, they have reduced the 62 to 21 now. So he will need, because the 21, they are not agreeing. It's 20 or 20? 20. They are not agreeing. So he will need time to study them again before he takes final decision. So we will suspend the collation for today to give him time. Then when he's ready, he will call us. Then we'll come and conclude.
You see, as we started, I said, I don't have the results. It was destroyed during my collation. So they brought sheets, results, and some of the results are in contention. Some of them, you can see mistakes on the sheets that they brought. So I need to confirm. I need that the MPP brought, or the sheets that I have received from the parties. I have to authenticate them.
So if you say you have to authenticate, how are you going to do that?
That one is left with me. That one is left with me.
Well,
I have to.
You don't have the pink sheets. How are you?
I know my work. I know my work. I know how I'm going to do it.
After the Accra High Court ordered the Electoral Commission to collate results in these 4 constituencies, the EC declared Charles Forson of the MPP as MP-elect for Tema Central with 18,870 votes. Ebi Bright of the NDC polled 18,815 votes. In the Okaikwe Central constituency, MPP's Patrick Yalboama was declared winner after the collation with 21,099 votes. His closest contender, Baba Sadiq, polled 19,368 votes. In Techiman South, the MPP's Martin J. Mensah Kosa was declared winner by the Electoral Commission with 46,663 votes. The NDC's Christopher Bayre polled 43,429 votes. Well, the MPP say they are satisfied with the processes so far.
But we continue to abide by the EC's guidelines and rules. We are all aware that at the commencement of this exercise, the EC said parties must submit to them their copies of the Form 8A from these 62 polling stations. We did. Whether scanned, soft copy, or hard. EC indicated that where there are discrepancies between parties' numbers, the final decision will come from them. We've gone through all the 62, 40 of them have been accepted. It means we are left to 20. EC says we need to give him some time, not more than 24 hours, for this exercise to be done. We will plead with our supporters and other stakeholders that let us respect the rules of the game.
However, the NDC have indicated that they do not recognize the collation exercise that is going on.
We are not going to take kindly with what is going on. We are not part of it. We will not respect whatever is coming out from this process because it's an illegal process. Completely illegal. In fact, our attention has been drawn. That's why I rushed down here to address the general public. Let the NDC supporters be aware that, look, they should be rest assured. Leadership is in charge. And we will make sure that the illegality going on here will be reset by the reset process. It's left with 2 days for us to start the reset.
With just 2 days until the members of Parliament elect are sworn in, the Electoral Commission is obviously racing against time to decide on what to do with Ablekuma North.
Meanwhile, the NDC has rejected the collation and declaration of results for the 3 outstanding constituencies, labeling the process as illegal, as we heard Dr. Rashid Tango say over there. Now, Director of Legal Affairs for the party, Iddrisu Tamaklo, says the party has filed an appeal and stay of execution against the Accra High Court's ruling that ordered the Electoral Commission to complete the collation of the results.
I need to state categorically that the National Democratic Congress reject these purported redeclarations that are happening today at the rich office of the Electoral Commission. We reject it. The National Democratic Congress, together with our parliamentary candidates in these 4 constituencies, were the interested parties as far as the mandamus application or applications were concerned. Now, immediately after the court made those orders, we proceeded to the registry of the court to file a notice of appeal together with an application to stay the execution of those orders. Now, having done that, we proceeded to the office of the Electoral Commission. They were not there. We moved to the law firm of the Commission's lawyer. Thankfully, we met the clerk in the law firm, and the processes were duly served on the clerk. Now, and this yesterday, the process having been served on them, it's our expectation that the Electoral Commission will abide with the processes that were set. Now, they have decided to blatantly defy the application to stay the execution and proceed with this purported redeclaration. And that is why we say we categorically reject this redeclaration.
Now, Upper West Regional Minister Stephen Yakubu says he's surprised the governing New Patriotic Party lost the presidential election despite the development it's brought to Ghana. In an exclusive interview with Joy News Upper West Regional correspondent Rafiq Salam, he posited that he expected the people to reward the party by voting massively for them.
Outgoing Upper West Regional Minister, Ambassador Stephen Yakubu says he is yet to come to terms with the massive defeat of the New Patriotic Party NPP, despite what he termed as monumental development that the party brought to the Upper West region and the country at large.
The Kamba Bridge is a major bridge. It's an international road. I know how our party and Honorable Ambrose and the good people of the NPP work hard for that bridge to reconstruct it. And in fact, as a region, we're so lucky because during the rainy season, if that bridge wasn't there, that entire sector would have been cut off. And this is the vision and this is the way MPP work. But doing all this, in this region, we got zero. So
Nando may be an isolated case.
Well, I just gave an example about the entire Upper West region. Look, Soko projects, DDF, Get Fund, District Assembly's Common Fund, you name it. There's a massive improvement in people's lives. But as a politician sitting down, what I need to think about is, really, do Ghanaians really want the roads? Do they want the schools? Do they want the hospitals? Do they want the electricity? Because that is what is running through my mind. Because if really indeed they want these things, why did we lose? Even in this region, we didn't even get even a single seat. Are you saying that we didn't do anything? The 8 years, are you saying that we didn't do anything at all in this region? Even in Wahia, look at the peace that we are enjoying. Are you saying that we didn't do anything? So, it is something that we need to...
It may be relative because some few years ago, 3 years ago, we could count about 18 people. Most of them security men died.
Yes.
What was insecure?
We have stabilized the situation. And that's the most important thing. Problems come. And there's no community. I mean, you see the US, people are driving buses into people, killing them. It is a government that when problems come, how they met out solutions. And that is what MPP does.
President Akufo-Addo in March 2024 did a mini reshuffle, swapping the two upper regional ministers that brought Ambassador Stephen Yakubu to the Upper West region. That decision of President Akufo-Addo did not sing well with the people. Many are of the opinion that it is an exercise in futility as it benefited the two reshuffled ministers.
In other stories, fire has grazed over 100 stalls and 30 shops at the Beg your pardon, Kwadaso Wood Market in the Kwadaso Municipal of the Ashanti region. Now, the inferno ravaged the main sawmill, destroying major plants, equipment, and thousands of cedi worth of goods. Nana Bwachi Adam tells us more in this report.
The fire at the Kwadaso Wood Market caused huge damages to millions of properties in the wood market on Saturday evening before the intervention of the fire service. The blaze spread rapidly and ignited an explosion in a nearby ECT power supply chamber, causing a more devastating impact. Some of the victims say the fire service used more than 5 hours to fight the fire to avoid spreading to the nearby houses. Most of the victims are calling on the incoming administration to launch an investigation into the matter and also come to their aid. She says, what has happened here is new to us. We need the help of the authorities. We need you to come to our aid.
And when I came to the scene, to be frank, the fire was very great because it was something that we the boys here, we cannot do anything about it. So we need to call the fire service for them to come so that they will come to our aid.
The assembly member at the Insiasari electoral area at the Kwadaso municipality, Richard Tutu, speaking to Joy News, said no life has been lost, but the most affected items are the wood products and the milling machines.
It affected so much, and a lot of I can say they've lost a lot of properties here. A lot of properties here have been lost.
Have you been able to quantify how many traders have been affected?
About 30 here.
Going forward, what will be done?
We've just started the investigation on what caused the fire. So the assembly too will come in for us to know what to do in the near future.
Investigations are currently underway to identify the cause of the fire. For Joy News, Nana Bwachi Yadom, Kumasi.
Moving on, Member of Parliament-elect for the Ebuakwa South constituency, Dr. Kingsley Ajiman, is asking government to immediately halt the trader-led reconstruction of the Kantamanso clothing market that was raised by fire on Thursday, January 2nd, 2025. Now, the blaze claimed one life, destroyed over 1,000 stalls, and caused losses worth millions of Ghana cedis. Despite the tragedy, traders have already begun rebuilding their stalls at the site. Now, Dr. Kingsley Ajiman insists that the reconstruction must be government-led to ensure proper standards and safety.
The fire that started at 1:20 a.m. on Thursday, according to Kantamanto Traders Association, affected over 7,000 shops and approximately 30,000 traders, claiming one life. Here is chairman of the Kantamanto Traders Association, Samuel Amo, in an interview with Joy News.
I know somebody died from where the fire started. He was sleeping on top of some of the bills. So before he realized that there was a fire, he fall from the. He was rushed to Kurubu, but I was made to understand that he just passed on, and that is the casualty, the only casualty that I know of. When we talk about people that have lost their goods, where we were standing now, there are over 2,000 shares here, and you know there are about 7,000 shares were lost to the fire. There were 7,000 shares.
The National Fire Service battled the blaze for over 12 hours before successfully extinguishing it. However, less than 24 hours later, traders have already started rebuilding their shops in a bid to prevent authorities from redeveloping the area.
Niania Moya dear. Young Pinemo Bianca say, or Besim shopping mall. I know baby Biansana Yaniabia Husu. Yapomicho.
So they are pleading with government to come to their aid. According to him, when it happened in 2013, government supported them. They are not expecting anything different. They don't want new shops, they don't want anything. All that they are pleading is that they want government to support them.
But I say na pamo aha pamo because your baby more ye di moja and I ain't Ghana for no so no your baby a toy ad any baby ye because more be Ghana have be but okwa busan was any bado send you go but it can't amount to any patchy woman in any packet so what I see you because population where for long short to see and I may go I meet my catch say about the 50% in ebio mokunu 85 ni nyina ni kunu can't amount to an etiti wo mo beto mu kura nkole 2 and 3 but e bia mo you say bia mo besi amo acha manipa mo emwa because for su niam na enton wo mo mu because I di adwa wo table so aha no kura hende Ghana na di ura kanta ha utimi de bo bra.
The chairman of the Cantonment Traders Association, Samuel Amo, is also urging authorities to assist the affected traders to rebuild their structures.
We know the government, the MPP or the NDC or whatever will be in power that will help us. But we want to help because the saying is having help those who help themselves. So we are helping ourselves. And we don't expect, we know the economy is cannot cater for everything.
Collins Frimpon for Joy News.
Well, from Kantamanto, we get into our business update. And in our first story, economist Professor Patrick Asuming has warned about economic difficulties in the medium to long term when the country begins to repay debts owed creditors. He says of the economy is not out of the woods yet, owing to the cascading effect of the debt exchange program. And President Dankwa Akufo-Addo, during his last State of the Nation address, mentioned that government had begun making some $346 million payments to Eurobond holders, which has helped in restoring confidence in the economy. Now, speaking to Joy Business, Professor Asuming said it is too early to start jubilating.
I was quite surprised to hear the president say that the economy is not broke. I mean, well, we couldn't pay our debt, and we are begging our debtors to forgive us and to slash us part of our debt. If that doesn't mean that we are broke, I don't know what else that means. But I mean, if we take the president's word that the economy is not broke, we've seen recently even WAEC struggled to get funding, the required funding to mark papers for students to come to school. And also, we've seen even, if you ask people who are doing national service, I think they are owed at least 2 months' pay. So if really the economy is not broke, and yet we refuse to make this payment, I guess some people say it's just pure wickedness. So, but it's not the case that the economy is not broke. The economy is clearly broke. And regarding the other things the president said, well, I think that's his interpretation of how the economy is. I think the president tends to focus too much on some of the 1 or 2 macroeconomic indicators, especially the growth indicator. But when you look at all the indicators broadly, including some of the more granular micro data that the Statistical Service releases, so you know that while the GDP number says the economy is growing faster than expected, we also see that the labor market is getting weaker if you follow the employment statistics that the Ghana Statistical Service releases, or you look at alternative data that tells you that more Ghanaians are becoming vulnerable to food insecurity. So I think perhaps, the president is choosing and picking what specific data to support the claim that, the economy is doing better. We are nowhere near recovery. As it's going to unfold in the next year or two, we will really begin to see how difficult as a new government takes over.
In other business stories, energy strategist Dr. Yusuf Sulemana is upbeat that the International Arbitration Court's ruling in favor of Tullow Oil, preventing the firm from paying more than $300 million tax to the Ghana Revenue Authority, will go a long way to boost confidence in the operations of the exploration firm. Reacting to the development, Dr. Suleimana urged Tallow Oil to continue to engage government over tax disputes covering its operations in Ghana on a mutually accepted basis.
A lot of confidence. Like it or not, Tallow has suffered a lot. Sometimes it's not by their own doing. And I can tell you that Tallow portfolio, Ghana is their main producing asset. They are not having it easy in Kenya. They are not having it easy in Uganda. They hit dry hole in Guyana. Namibia, they pull out only for people to go and find oil there. So Ghana was their main concentration point. I had my own problem with that strategy, where they are doing capital discipline to the detriment of the core business, which is EMP, exploration and production. That has happened. We are fortunate Ghana is their main focus. So I always see Ghana and Tallow as Siamese twins. We need each other. Tallow need Ghana as much as we need Tallow. Without Tallow, our upstream is, like I said, our upstream, we don't, Jubilee Field is the grand jewel for our production. And if you imagine, and a lot of the shares that were falling within Tallow and other things, it was actually because of a development in Ghana and nothing else, and other areas. The producing asset, if the producing assets are not churning that much, it affects the stock market or their stock market, So I believe that with these things resolving or getting to be on good footing, it will pave a way, it will pave a beautiful way for Tallow to come back and come back strongly. And at the end of the day, it will help us. It will help Ghana, it will help Tallow.
Wraps up the AM News Bulletin on the AM Show. Of course, our conversations begin now, starting with the news review segment. And Dr. Dixon Adumaku-Kisi, who's MP for Anya-Soutum, as well as James Kofi Annan, the 2024 NDC parliamentary candidates for Ifutu, are joining us to review the newspapers. Please stay. We're back in a bit. Around the world and across Ghana's 16 regions, this is the AM Show, and this section is the news review segment. And my guest joining me in the studio this morning, Dr. Dixon Adumaku-Kisi. He's Member of Parliament for Anya-Soutum. And I also have James Kofi Annan. He's NDC, the 2024 NDC parliamentary candidate for Ifutu constituency. Gentlemen, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Well, so like we usually do, we give our guests 2 minutes at least to walk us through any topical issue they want to reflect on. I want to start with you, Dr. Adumaku-Kisi. What will be your 2 minutes take for us this morning?
Well, let me take the opportunity and say hello to all your viewers. You guys have a very wide viewership.
Yeah.
Today being my last day of official duty as a parliamentarian, I want to use this opportunity to thank everybody who's contributed to this success. And I also sincerely want to appreciate my parents for their support, my entire family, children, wife, and everybody who has been an enormous support in this journey. And let me also thank the party, the MPP fraternity, which has been tough and now literally a family as well. And let me also, as I close, say a big thank you to Ghana for this opportunity to be able to serve. Many are called, but few are chosen. And as it stands, many were very excited about serving in the 8th Parliament, but not all of us made it. And I'm very thankful and looking forward to a brighter, future. I don't think I'm done with politics. Looking at the likes of Osafo Mafu, who are still doing politics,
right.
I think I'll be in politics for the long haul. And I'm praying that as this chapter closes, a new fantastic chapter also begins. But certainly, I believe in vacationing, so I think I will have to take a very nice short break or interlude, and then come back renewed and ready to communicate for the party.
I do want to ask if you think that your people overpromised you and underdelivered, or if you just got what you worked for. The inputs I mean, the output you got in terms of losing that seat, is it at par with the work that you did in that constituency? Well,
I mean, for me, let me say that we maintained our seat. I didn't go beyond primaries.
Okay.
But let me also say that I think politics, the right people don't always necessarily win.
Okay.
And that is by virtue of the nature of the things that go into politics. And there are many instances I can make varied comparisons, and I can almost state that many factors go into the outcome of who becomes the member of parliament or who becomes president. And even in many jurisdictions where there's a clear disparity in competence, you can still have the people choosing for a different reason who they want to do business with. But I take a lot of inspiration from this man who just passed on, Jimmy Carter. I think he was a one-time president, and he's known more for his work after his presidency in terms of how he impacted many lives across the globe. And I think that either one term or two term, what you do beyond your tenure also really matters.
Okay, we'll be looking out for you. Mr. Annan,
yes.
What about you? What would be your 2-minute take for us, first of all?
Well, thank you. Yesterday, the NDC in the Futu constituency embarked on a thank you float, which was very massive and successful. I would like to take the opportunity to thank all our constituents for coming out in their massive numbers to demonstrate the victory that our presidential candidate chalked, and also still expressing their support for me, even though I did not get the seat. It was something that is so special. Yesterday was very inspirational for me. I realized that people truly, truly love me, just that I didn't get to win the seat, and they wish I had done that. So I'd like to thank them and thank everyone who came out to vote for me and express its support for me. I also want to thank the flag bearer for all the support that he has given me so far.
President-elect.
Yes, President-elect. Thank you. You see, it's a constituency that has been a very difficult one for the NDC. It has been so for obvious reasons. Most of you know the reasons why it has been so. And but for the support of the president-elects in the past, I don't think I would have been able to get to where I have gotten to. So I would like to thank him for that, and to say that congratulations to all the 187 or so parliamentary candidates who won their seats in the NDC. This is a super majority. In fact, it's a 24-hour economy where half of our MPs can go to sleep and still have majority in parliament. So I'd like to congratulate all of them and to say that we should all exercise patience with our president-elect. It's not going to be an easy task for him choosing who must be in government. For me, I believe that in fairness, those who have won their seat must have the advantage. Okay. So we should all be exercising patience and be praying for him for what he's going to do in the next 4 years.
Are you going to contest again in the next 4 years?
It's too early for me to say. I have to do a lot of reflections and then also look at. I mean, for me, one thing
you're also
is
taking
clear.
A break like Dr.
I'm not taking a break necessarily, but one thing for sure is that I will use the experiences I've gathered in politics to help reform the electoral system. That one is for sure. I believe there's a lot of things wrong with our electoral processes, with the electoral commission, with the contestants in the constituencies, and even with supporters. I think that we must all apply our experiences in reforming the system to make it less acrimonious and to make it fair and to remove, I wouldn't say totally remove monetization, but at least to minimize the
extent of monetization in our politics.
Okay, great.
But that's one I'm going to do for sure.
Well, we are looking out for both of you, and
Yeah,
I wish
sure.
you the very best. Let's get into the proper review now. We don't have newspapers, but let's start from enjoyonline.com. And Ghana's 8th Parliament dissolves today to make way for the 9th Parliament. Dr. Adumaku Kisi is part of that 8th Parliament, will be exiting today. But what's interesting about that is the president-elect's mandate on the NDC MPs to retain Alban Bagbin as Speaker for the 9th Parliament. It has never been done before, and I stand corrected. I know that the very first Speaker of Parliament we had did the first and second term, but in this Fourth Republic, have we ever had a Speaker maintained in another term? It hasn't been done before. But what are your reflections on that? I've seen some commentary coming in from CDD's, I think, Executive Director, Professor Kwesi Prempeh, and he has issues about Mohammed's approach to endorsing Bagbin. But I don't know what you think about it.
Yeah, I would have been surprised if the president didn't have a preference. You know, as an experienced politician as he is, he definitely has a preference. And as I said in my previous commentary, the sheer numbers of the NDC MPs makes it quite complex when somebody who is interested in becoming a speaker has to lobby to be nominated. So, and that is where leadership counts. So the president basically came out to exert leadership.
Okay.
You know, he not necessarily nominated, he just expressed his views that under the circumstances, and knowing the experiences that we've had in the past, the person of the present speaker being retained is the way to go. And I support the president's views on who must be nominated to become the speaker.
Okay.
You see, quite apart from the fact that...
And yeah, I just wanted to get context on what this man was saying, the executive director for CDD. And so just to add to your submission, he said, of course, it's expected that the president as head of government would have a strong interest, blah, blah, blah. In particular, whereas the incoming parliament, the president's party also controls an overwhelming majority seats. And therefore, there is nothing wrong with the president publicly expressing and indicating his preference for the Speaker of Parliament. While some may argue that it is biased or unconstitutional for the incoming president to openly endorse a candidate for Speaker, he disagreed. That is just, it's apt.
What is
so
exactly,
not so different from what you were
exactly
saying.
what exactly is wrong? He has not broken any law.
Okay.
And what he has done, he has not gone to Parliament to nominate the Speaker. All that he has done is to express his views. I have heard some, you know, making comments on the choice of word, mandated the parliamentarians to nominate. I think it's just a semantic, it's just a choice of words. I think what the president basically did was to say that, look, given the chance, I would go for this person. And everyone would want to you know, work with somebody that, you know, is convenient for him to work with. So, and you know, the speaker has done well.
Yeah, that's what I want to throw to Dr. Adumaku Kisi, in fact, to get your assessment of the work the speaker has done in the 8th Parliament and whether or not you agree with the president-elect's mandate to the NDC MPs. What do you make of it?
Well, Donald Trump also expressed his preference or his support for the current U.S. Speaker. So I wouldn't say it is necessarily out of line. The American democracy is 400 plus years. And for whatever reason, the presidential candidate or elect should also be able to make a recommendation as to who he would love to do business with, not necessarily you know, his choice. Now, one key thing which I think ought to be looked at in the future is the fact that parliamentarians should be able to make a determination of who their choices or preferences are with regards to who is nominated. Because I believe that over the 4-year period, you are more likely to know the pluses and minuses of your speaker or some of your colleagues who would be appropriate. I mean, I know the likes of Haruna Iddrisu could have also been a speaker.
Yeah.
I know Muntaka could also, I mean, Ayariga, I mean, all of these people, even Ayini, I mean, you know, they are very powerful men within the NDC.
Who are experienced in terms of parliamentary affairs.
Who have the experience. So I think, and I'm talking for the body of parliamentarians, that moving forward, I think that some level of attention should be given to what the parliamentarians think with regards to who they'll be doing business with, you know, because you are literally, the speaker is like the chairperson for the MPs. So if you are making a recommendation for the chairperson for the MPs, then they should have a say. Now, I would stretch this also to minority leadership and majority leadership. And I, though I'm not with the 9th Parliament, I'm of the opinion moving forward that based on the current standing orders that we have, a lot more leverage or a lot more dividend should be given to parliamentarians to be able to make a choice as to who their leader would be. And I think, or their leaders will be. And I think that that would also be able to bring up, you know, those who are very competent to the fore without coloration of regional selection or party favorite, or as somebody would say, godfatherism, you know. So I think that very critical, if not for the 9th, but the 10th Parliament, is the work that has to go into hopefully addressing the constitution of the MPP or the NDC to make the members of Parliament be more responsible for choosing their leaders.
Okay.
And as it is, also making a choice with regards to their chairperson or the speaker.
So, for example, the new
Parliament.
entrants should be able to elect who they want to be Speaker of Parliament. Is that what you're saying?
Well, they would elect.
Yeah.
There will be a voting.
Yes, but
as it is, I mean, on the NDC side, as it stands now, there's been one nomination. Based on our numbers, it wouldn't be politically strategic to nominate somebody from the MPP. I mean, when we had 137, it was a risk the NDC took to bring Alan Sumani. But it was a good risk because the numbers could be influenced, which was influenced.
I want to bring you back to the Speaker for the sake of time. You've been in Parliament with him. On the scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate Alban Bagbin in terms of how well he steered the affairs of Parliament, the 8th Parliament?
I would say that Bagbin worked hard, unfortunately for the NDC.
Unfortunately for the NDC.
And I'll say that because I would have hoped that a speaker would be very colorless in terms of his decision-making. And what I mean colorless, like absolute vodka, is that his decisions should not have been tainted by one party. And he leaned, and it's not his fault.
He did.
It is not the speaker's fault. He's been NDC all along, and once he sat in the chair, he leaned towards, you know, strategies that were very favorable to the NDC. And let me cite.
I know Mr. Annan disagrees with you.
Well, I mean, everybody is of their opinion, but let me cite one for example. How he managed to stampede and delay the e-levy. That was one example. And look at how it got us into fist fighting even. You know, the other one I can now even state is how he strategically delayed us doing the budget for the next 3 months. I mean, when we would go, you know, we had recalls that didn't didn't bear fruit because, they wanted to, at that point, delay the tax exemptions, not make sure that the free SHS bill is passed. I mean, listen, it was masterly.
So it was because
it was masterly.
MPs ran to the court for interpretation on matters that where the Parliament was actually supposed to exercise discretion.
What the Speaker did was masterly, and I take my hats off for him. And I'm saying that I would have wished, but it didn't happen. If wishes were horses, beggars would ride.
So give me a number.
But as it stands, I think in doing the bidding of the NDC, I'll give him 120%.
Wow, in doing the bidding of the NDC?
I'll give him 120%. But as to his unbiasedness, there were days when I would give him, father, oh father. He had his moments that he was fair-handed, but I must.
So give me a number. Let's move on from this. Give me a number.
Oh,
as Speaker of Parliament, I know what you've said.
Based on his experience and based on his knowledge, in terms of his ability to work as a speaker, undoubtedly, as it stands, nobody can take that from him. But the party coloration, there are days he puts on the NDC cap, and those were unfortunate days. I'm unable to put a number to it.
All right. Dr. Mr. Anand,
yes.
I know you have a lot to say.
Yeah, you see, I have a number of, in some parts I agree with my brother in some of the comments that he's made, but in majority of what he has said, I disagree. Let me start with the Speaker's responsibility. What is Parliament there to do? Parliament is there as an oversight of the executive, more or less, to pass law.
Yes, pass laws, primarily to pass
and to
laws.
hold government to account.
In terms of the checks and balances that needs to be in order for that. But okay.
So there's a primary responsibility of that house. So when you're a government, you want tax exemption, you want to pass e-levy, and those who are supposed to hold you in check says that no, hold a minute, this is not right. Obviously, you're not going to be happy because it's not going to go in your favor. So in that case...
Yes, that's an argument you can make.
Yes, but in that case...
The NDC can make.
Exactly, but see, what is the opposition there to do in any way?
Okay.
You understand? So in that case, you are going to give him 120% for being NDC. But he was just doing his work as somebody who must say, look, maybe you have not addressed your mind to this or that. E-levy, for instance. We were in this country when we were told that e-levy was going to solve all of our problems. Now, did e-levy solve all of our problems?
Solve some.
It solved some, and not even what percentage. It was after the passage of e-levy that we rather lost the economy. So it means that the Speaker was right when he said that what you are doing is not necessarily going to be the panacea for the problems that confront this country. In the same way, when you are talking about tax exemptions, you are talking about an economy that was breaking down, that was collapsing. You need taxes. You need the money to run the economy. And yet, you are giving over $100 million in exemptions.
Okay.
Anyone who is a parliamentarian would ask questions.
You have to move on
But I wish you had given me 1 or 2 more minutes. He was talking, my brother was talking about how the speakers of parliament must be selected. If you look at it critically, the president is selected more or less by his party. If you look at it critically, the Chief Justice is nominated by the president. Even the EC, who is supposed to be a neutral arbiter of our election, is nominated by the president. So if the president has a say in the nomination of a speaker, for me, there must be even a law that mandates the president to nominate somebody for the speaker position.
Okay.
So that it addresses all aspects of our governance in how the president gets involved.
Okay,
in the
Mr.
nomination
I have to interject at this point, so we move on to other stories.
I know.
Let's still on our democratic dispensation. So the Electoral Commission on Sunday declared I don't know if we call it a recollation or conclusion of collation, because it looks like from what happened, they didn't have to recollate, in fact. They just had to complete the disputed polling stations that were not actually collated. And now it turns out that the NPP parliamentary candidates were declared winners, where the NDC, they're unhappy with that. I know you know the stories, and I want to take your quick thoughts.
I would want
that.
to change your submission on that, because Domi Kwabenya went to NDC after further review.
Well, that was when we had 9 disputed constituencies.
Well,
I'm down to the 4 that went to the High Court,
Well,
where the ruling was that the EC should complete collation.
And Ablekuma North has not been called.
That's the only one left.
Yes.
Yeah. So we have 3 NPP members of parliament elect as declared by the EC.
Tema Central.
Yes, Okankwe Central. And is it Techiman?
Techiman South.
Techiman South, yes.
But you know,
so
let me take a quick
you were the NDC were very, very confident that they had won these seats. But now we're seeing something entirely different.
And we are upset.
Why are you upset?
You see, what has happened is like a woman whose boyfriend or husband has lived in America or Europe for a while and misses him so much. And then all of a sudden he heard the news that the husband or the boyfriend was coming home. You see how you be enthusiastically polishing yourself and dressing just to meet your husband or your boyfriend, because he's been away for a while. That's what the Electoral Commission has done. The Electoral Commission was expecting that.
I don't get the analogy.
But it doesn't make it right.
You see, the Electoral Commission has been so eager to declare those seats for the MPP.
Numbers don't lie, do they? I guess, bottom line, numbers don't lie,
do
they?
The numbers don't lie.
Great.
Let me count.
Now, the numbers prove that these NPP MPs actually won the election in those constituencies.
Yes. I don't want to believe
Could
that.
Could it be that
you
was
are
why
acting like how
I'm just,
the Electoral Commission was excited about the coming home of the husband?
That is why the NDC were fighting so hard, because they thought they might just not win those seats.
Our elections are governed by law. The CI 127.
We just don't want a situation.
Hold on.
Kofi Annan.
Yes. Hold on.
We don't want a situation where after counting 3 polling stations, somebody just declares.
I get you.
We don't want that.
I get you.
And if you've won, you've won.
This election,
have a problem of
this election was governed by the CI 127, right? The CI lays down clearly what to be done when you are aggrieved by a declaration. So it is not somebody's conjecture that because they think that there was incomplete coalition, therefore go and do things that way.
Not somebody.
There's a declaration. Whether that declaration was right or not, there was a declaration. And the law says that whenever there's a declaration, if you want to, my brother, if you want to challenge that declaration, go by petition. After
so you're
that
arguing
result,
procedural inconsistency?
Exactly.
Oh, wow.
Follow the procedure.
I mean, after the issue has been to court, the Supreme Court even had to intervene and, you know.
We would all have to look at the law. If we want to change the law, then I will agree with you.
Okay.
So that one day somebody will not come from behind and say, I've declared somebody a parliamentarian. That's when I agree. But under the face of the law right now, once there is a certain declaration, you can overturn that declaration through that process.
Was that declaration, the one that was done first, without completely collating all the polling station results, was that declaration correct? Was it proper? In terms of arguing your procedural
you and I were not there.
Yeah, but there were so many polling station results that were not included in that declaration, which rendered the declaration
I think they should
incorrect.
They should post their collated
the whole issue is
the NDC should post.
You may be right, I may be right. How do we know? If somebody comes and say, this gentleman has slapped me, he tells you and I that this gentleman has slapped this person.
Okay, Mr. Kofi,
you were not there. I was not there. How would you know that the person indeed slapped the other person?
That is why we have.
So
papers. That is why we have papers.
That is why the law will say that when somebody reports to you that I have been slapped, take that person through this process.
All right, please hold.
So the question is whether that person was taken through that process.
Point made. Procedural inconsistencies.
Exactly. But we can all agree to change the law.
I think that what is different here is that the Electoral Commission administratively realized that collation was not complete. And by so doing, ensured that collation is complete so that the call is made. The last election, the NDC had problems with the EC calling the shots before full collation was done. So I think they should have rather been even in support of ensuring that the EC does complete collation. They are rather amiss. What they are showing is that when it is in their favor, they want you to not complete collation. When it is not in their favor, they want you to complete collation. I mean, that is neither here nor there. So I think that administratively, the Electoral Commission has every right to correct a wrong that is so obvious. And when they make the call, then and gazette it, if you have issues, then you go to court. I mean, and my key thing is that right from the beginning, the NDC officially has not been able to put out any collation that is in disparity of what the EC has brought. When it favored them at Dominic Kwabena, I think they were mute. They agreed. As I've learned, even one of the places, Obuasi East, the NDC strategically has informed their candidate that we cannot go with you because what is very clear is that we did premature ejaculation or premature declaration of your win. And when they did sober reflection and double-checked their numbers, it was so clear and glaring. And I think it's very painful to think you've won when you've not won. I agree with you. And it's the same thing we keep saying that data don't lie. And as it stands now, whether you are emotional about it, whether you are grieving about it, MPP got below 40%. We are crying too. I mean, but as it is what it is.
Well,
38.2%.
They're below 40.
I said below 40.
Yeah.
I mean,
no, I just want to be specific.
So as it stands
right.
now, I think that the right thing has been done by the Electoral Commission, and the numbers, you see, every vote counts. And this message should go out to the people for them to then believe that, yes, truly, their votes matter. It can't be that we've all voted and some votes are not collated. When SAL issue happened, the NDC was up on everybody's neck about it. And this time, the Electoral Commission is ensuring that every vote is counted. And I think we can't trouble them for that. Now, whether you go to court or not, as it stands now, the actual collation has been done in the open space, public for everybody to see, and there's no way Okankwe Central numbers could have changed unless you have a different number. If the NDC has a different collated number from what the EC has brought, they should bring it out and say that, hey, in actuality, Ghanaian public, look, this is what we saw at Okankwe Central, and what the AC is churning out is different. The argument so far has not been that the numbers are in error, but the argument is that it's been declared, and why go and double check it?
Right.
And I think that is even more shadier. So I want to hear the NDC come out and say that, listen, these are collated figures at Dominic Kwabena. The EC says NDC won, but it is wrong. I'm waiting to see a party that will tell the EC that you claim we won, but you are wrong.
Okay.
And these are numbers.
Actually, we'll get more surgical with this in our big stories.
Yes, I know. I'm happy with Honorable the angle is coming from. That sometimes we just all have to be consistent. Just like 4 years ago when they had an MP who went independent. You see the way they quickly took him off their party. And then 4 years later, when another thing happened, They went back. So principle is very important.
Right.
And as he, an honorable person who has enacted law in Parliament, for me to follow, I expect that we would all begin to be principled about the stance we take each time an issue has come.
We do have to be wrapping up, but I want to leave with this story, and you can add it to your final submission for me. So, Dr. Addison, the governor of Bank of Ghana, is saying that as long as he remained governor, none of those revoked banking licenses will be reinstated. And this was in an interview with Joy News, I think, on Personality Pro. No, well, I don't know who he spoke to, but I remember watching the interview on Joy News. And what do you make of it? You can add that to your final submission for me. He says as long as he remains governor, none of those licenses will be reinstated.
So I think is erroneous for him to make that, because the companies may come in different shape and form. And based on my knowledge of banking, should one sheikh decide to invest in any of those banks and change their capital position or their investment position, you cannot say that you're going to deny them, and especially when the board of directors change and all of these things. So from a bankruptcy standpoint, I think that is not an appropriate statement to make, because, you know, somebody, and if I had billions of dollars, I could buy any of those banks, invest in it, so that our positions have, you know, changed to meet what the current Bank of Ghana requirements are. And if that is done, would you then tell me that because of the name, you will not allow us to get the license? That would not be right. So I think that I love Addison, but this comment is not professional and shouldn't have been said.
Well, in his defense,
by virtue of the fact that I can cite many bankruptcy banks that were resold or rebranded, you know, not necessarily a name change, and were brought back because the directors changed, the amount of capital they have changed. So I think it's an unfortunate thing.
I think the rhetoric is that when the bank grants you a license, they are giving you permission to take people's money and not treat it as a private business. And so those banks, those 347 microfinances and all, they got what was coming to them. That's the rhetoric, that's the understanding I get from what
but
he
my
said.
point is that somebody can now invest in them and invest in enormous amount, which will change their capital position. And by virtue of that, they'll meet all the standards, the current standards that the Bank of Ghana has for microfinances. So if that should
don't
happen,
completely close the door on that for them.
I mean, that's my point.
Right.
Yeah, I agree that I think that the comment was a bit more harsh. It feels like he has judged them completely. So on that score, I agree. I've been a banker. I used to work with Barclays Bank for a number of years. And I know, I clearly understand the what went into the decisions on those collapsed banks. You know, as a banker, you are a trustee of people's resources. So once you have been given those resources, you need to, you know, apply it judiciously. You are supposed to maybe invest, get some profit out of it, but not to misuse it.
Right.
So, but I also think that the cleanup could have been done differently. And because of that, whatever we are going to do going forward from today, we have to look at the human factor, the human face to things.
Right.
For instance, people have lost jobs. People's deposits are still locked up. Could we have taken over the banks as a government and made it in such a way that people will not lose jobs and people will not lose their investment? Somebody, a street person, recently made a very fantastic analysis. He says that, why would you use $25 million to collapse a bank that you could have used $8 million to correct? So I believe that we have to look at how do we ensure that those who have lost their jobs would get their jobs back, those who have lost their deposits would get their monies back.
Okay.
It's important.
Thank you so much. And that there is James Kofi Annan, 2024 NDC parliamentary candidate for a Futu constituency.
And 2020.
And 2020, right.
Yes.
And then Dr. Dixon Adomaku Kisi, today is his last term in office as parliamentarian, member of parliament for Anya Sotom. And both of you join us for the news review segment. Thank you so much for spending some of your time with us.
Thank you.
Do stay with us because sports comes up next, and after that, we'll get into our big stories. We'll be right back.
Good morning. Let's do sports now on the AM show. My name is Haruna Mubarak, and the Ghana Football Association is searching for a new coach for the Black Queens following Nora Haptel's departure. Nora reportedly declined to extend her contract with Ghana and has signed a 3-year deal with Zambia, whom she will lead to the Women's AFCON in July. In a farewell message, the GFA thanked Nora for her service and expressed their wish for her to stay. They also assured Ghanaians that her replacement will be announced in due course. Now to the Ghana Premier League. And Asante Kotoko sits outside the top 5 after a 1-1 draw with Midiama. Meanwhile, Hearts of Oak moved up to 5th following their victory over Legon Cities. Highlights for you.
Ramsey, still Ramsey! And that's the fork! Into the lead against Legon Cities! Oh my goodness!
To score any team, to score against any team. Legon Cities have dominated this game. But with 1-2 touch passing, they found themselves in the box of Legon Cities and they buried the ball. It's a Hearts of Oak 1, Legon Cities 0.
Absolutely. Another very exciting performance. Just watch it. Picks it. Bit to the fitness. And again, as if it was going down, he just released it beyond the reach of Kwame Aziz. And the youngster really becoming a tough weapon in the hands of Coach Abubakar Ouattara. Just look at. That's a touch from Sani. Gives it away. Here's Yaya. And it's miskilled. And has really surviving that one. You can see Ouattara very furious on the touchline. You just look at it again. Absolutely outclassed on that occasion.
This sums up the day for Legon Cities. It's been miss upon misses.
Well, let's being a bit cautious after being reduced to 10 men. There's Bruce Tego, Maurice Fuseni. Lessing it onto the path of Bruce Tego again. Here comes the crossing, and again Benjamin Asari picks it for the 21-time Ghana Premier League champions. Cut that bit. That's certainly that answers here. For Legon Cities. Hearts of Oak victorious. Ouattara.
After declaring the parliamentary results for Okaikwe Central, Tema Central and Techiman South, the Electoral Commission has suspended the collation of Ablekuma North constituency. The reason? It says it has noticed some inconsistencies in some 20 pink sheet results that have been provided by the various parties.
Now, we were level 62 from the return of the US. After doing the collaboration with the two parties, they have reduced the 62 to 21 now. So he will need, because the 21, they are not agreeing. It's 20 or 20. They are not agreeing. So he will need time to study them again before he takes final decision. So we will suspend the collation for today to give him time. Then when he's ready, he will call us. Then we'll come and conclude.
You see, as we started, I said, I don't have the results. It was destroyed during my collation. So they brought sheets, results, and some of the results are in contention. Some of them, you can see mistakes on the sheets that they brought. So I need to confirm.
Is it the sheets that the MPP brought, or
the sheets that I have received from the parties? I have to authenticate them.
So if you say you have to authenticate, how are you going to do that?
That one is left with me. That one is left with me.
Well,
I have to.
You don't have the pink sheets. How are you?
I know my work. I know my work. I know how I'm going to do it.
After the Accra High Court ordered the Electoral Commission to collate results in these 4 constituencies, the EC declared Charles Forson of the MPP as MP-elect for Tema Central with 18,870 votes. Ebi Bright of the NDC polled 18,815 votes. In the Okaikwe Central constituency, MPP's Patrick Yabuama was declared winner after the collation with 21,099 votes. His closest contender, Baba Sadiq, polled 19,368 votes. In Techiman South, the MPP's Martin J. Mensah Kosa was declared winner by the Electoral Commission with 46,663 votes. The NDC's Christopher Baire polled 43,429 votes. Well, the MPP say they are satisfied with the processes so far.
But we continue to abide by the EC's guidelines and rules. We are all aware that at the commencement of this exercise, the EC said parties must submit to them their copies of the Form 8A from these 62 polling stations. We did. Whether scanned, soft copy, or hard. EC indicated that where there are discrepancies between parties' numbers, the final decision will come from them. We've gone through all the 62, 40 of them have been accepted. It means we are left to 20. EC says we need to give him some time, not more than 24 hours, for this exercise to be done. We will plead with our supporters and other stakeholders that let us respect the rules of the game.
However, the NDC have indicated that they do not recognize the collation exercise that is going on.
We are not going to take kindly with what is going on. We are not part of it. We will not respect whatever is coming out from this process because it's an illegal process. Completely illegal. In fact, our attention has been drawn. That's why I rushed down here to address the general public. Let the NDC supporters be aware that, look, they should be rest assured. Leadership is in charge. And we will make sure that the illegality going on here will be reset by the reset process. It's left with 2 days for us to start the reset.
With just 2 days until the members of parliament elect are sworn in, the Electoral Commission is obviously racing against time to decide on what to do with Ablekuma North.
Welcome to our big story segment on the AM show. Now, We know that the Electoral Commission have declared NPP parliamentary candidates as winners of 3 constituencies out of those 4 disputed. That is Tema Central, Okankwe Central, and Techiman South. But it appears that's not the end of those disputed constituencies yet, because the NDC have appealed to the High Court, and they are calling this illegal. Luckily, we have Dr. Rashid Tanko Computer joining us via Zoom this morning to help us put this in perspective, and he's Deputy Director of Elections and IT. Doc, thank you so much for joining us on the AM show. Now, I remember when the Supreme Court quashed that ruling of the High Court to recollate and, to listen to the NDC MPs on that mandamus application, we had a conversation, and I asked you if you'd be surprised if the ruling does not come in your favor. You said nothing of the sort could happen because the processes are being followed. It turns out that something contrary happened. And yesterday I listened to you say it is illegal. What is your case? We want to understand from your perspective why you say the declaration of these 3 results is illegal.
Very well. Sweetie, let me say good morning to your cherished viewers and then you yourself. Clearly, what happened yesterday was a total illegality being perpetrated by the Electoral Commission. And then, you see, this Electoral Commission is fast becoming a very lawless institution. And we must purge it with this kind of lawlessness they have been doing. You see, anytime it suits them, they choose and pick. That's how they are. And that is why they have made themselves, and everybody now tend to believe that they are in collusion with MPP to deny those 4 constituencies right representations. That is what they are doing. And it appears they are just helping the MPP to show up their number. Because everything that they are doing point towards that direction. What we found,
I want you to be as specific as possible so we understand your argument. What exactly is illegal in everything that we've seen so far? The High Court ruled on that mandamus application and asked that Electoral Commission conclude on collation, not recollate. So what's the illegality here?
The issue is about we filing a process to stay execution of the orders of the High Court. And on top of it, we also file an appeal against the ruling. We serve the Electoral Commission. They are in notice. They are aware of this processes. So why would they go ahead and conduct such an exercise yesterday? Is it not an illegal exercise? Why wouldn't we describe it as an illegal exercise? Were they not in the know that these processes were pending in the High Court? What was their haste? Why are they in their hurry?
Well, we have a couple of days to swearing in of the new members of Parliament. Maybe it's a time factor, so that they can conclude this in time.
STAL was in perpetuity for 4 years. What did they do about it? What did they do about it? For 4 years, they didn't have representation. Didn't you have Electoral Commission? Were they not the same these commissioners that made sure that SAL didn't get representation? What is in their haste? Why are they in the haste just trying to please the MPP? Or what is it? It's a legal process. We are all following the due process. We have filed this process, asking them to stay execution of that.
Okay,
and let's go through the right process.
Doc, what was your reason behind asking for that stay of execution and your appeal against the ruling? Now let's get into that.
Look, total travesty of justice occurred in High Court. I wish you were in the court to see the kind of ruling the High Court judge was presenting to everybody. Look, a bucket full of lies were poured in front of the judge, and he succumbed to those lies. He didn't even allow anybody to cross-examine those lies that the guys came and put it. Look, EC officials signed their affidavit, and in the affidavit, they deposed certain things they deposed in those affidavits. Complete lies, total lies, saying that their returning officers were forced to do declarations, that they were put on gunpoint, their lives were in danger, so they needed to do those declarations in order to get away from the troubles, and that NDC supporters came and vandalized their places and all that. Who cross-examined them? Nobody cross-examined this to find out the veracity of the stories they brought before the judge. But the judge made a ruling based on those things. So the judge was ruling as if he was sitting on an election petition. This was not an election petition. It was a mandamus. So his ruling was basically on an election petition, as if he was making his ruling based on an election petition. People have argued their cases. Nobody argued cases on the veracity of the declarations and all that.
All right, Doc, please
hold
for me.
So on what basis was he making ruling on that?
Okay, please hold for me. I'll come back to you in a bit. Let me also bring in Dr. Akwekwajiman Budu. He's Gimpa School of Law. He's Dean of Gimpa Law School, and he also joins us via Zoom. Doc, thank you for joining the conversation. I also remember having a conversation with you when we were awaiting the ruling on these 4 disputed constituencies. I asked you to make an educated guess, which you didn't exactly say what might happen. But are you happy with the results so far?
Good morning. It's not a question about being happy with the results. It's a question about whether the rulings of the court have done substantial justice to the issues at stake. And we all know what the issues at stake where the parties presented their cases respectively before.
Doc, kindly speak up for me. I'm struggling to hear you.
No, I was saying that the parties presented their cases respectively before the court. So at the end of the day, a decision has been arrived at based on what was presented before the court. So it's not a question about whether it was an election petition or not. That issue, there was a preliminary objection that was raised right at the beginning by the NDC candidates and the NDC itself, which the court went into and overruled that preliminary objection, which was grounded on the fact that the mandamus application was an election petition disguised as a mandamus application. The court disagreed based on the law, and the law is quite clear as to when mandamus will lie. And for the avoidance of doubt for your listeners, your viewers, a mandamus is simply an order that can be issued by a court to direct a public body or a public official to do its public duty. And to the extent that the Electoral Commission had not completed its public duty, which in this circumstance is collating the results in the specific constituencies in question, bear in mind that Regulation 43 of CI 127 says that you need a full complement of all the results from all polling stations in the constituency to be put on the Form 1C, that's the Parliamentary Election Results Collation Form. And on that basis, you can transcribe that to the Form 1D, the summary sheet. So to the extent that in these constituencies concerned, that full complement of results from the polling stations had not been received and collated, and then there was a purported declaration, or as I choose to call it, an announcement made on the basis of not all the polling station results, you cannot have a declaration properly so-called in law. And I believe that was the basis for the decision. And the mandamus works in the way that there must be a public duty that has to be performed, which in this case, the Electoral Commission is supposed to supervise, conduct elections, collate and declare the results. So clearly, if you were in court and you listen to the ruling, and when the ruling comes out, everybody will be able to read. The judge took his time to go through the process to make sure that the applicants for the mandamus had satisfied all those requirements, that yes, indeed, there was a public duty. Yes, there was a demand made which had been refused, and all that, and arrived at the conclusion that mandamus would therefore lie to compel the Electoral Commission to do its public duty. And the Electoral Commission itself also was saying that they also want to go and do their work because as the election management body, they had not concluded the elections in those 4 constituencies. So the argument that once an announcement is made at the collation center with or without the full complement of the election results, an unfortunate understanding of what the law is and how our elections are conducted.
Doc, the argument Dr. Rashid Tanko Computer is making is that the declaration is illegal because they there was an application to stay the execution of that, and that was neglected, and the declaration still went ahead. And so they're back in court. They filed an appeal against the ruling. Are they doing the right thing as we speak?
So
are they wrong? I guess is the question I'm asking. Are they wrong to call this an illegal declaration?
I don't know about that. It's not within my competence to say something was illegal or not. But for the purposes of public education, so that your listeners and viewers understand, a court gives its decision, its ruling in this particular circumstance. A dissatisfied party wants to appeal the ruling. It files a stay of execution. A stay of execution simply is that process which, if granted, generally speaking, will halt the proceedings or the matter that is to be executed, or the matter that you need to proceed on. So in this particular circumstance, mandamus was granted by the court, directed at the EC to go and complete the collation process. It was directed at the IGP and the Ghana Police Service to provide armed security for the purposes of the completion of that collation process. So if you have filed a notice of appeal seeking a stay of execution, but the order has been given and the EC has complied with the order, there's nothing else for you to stay. And I mean, and that's why these are live matters, so it's difficult to comment on some of these things which will end up in court one way or the other. But at the end of the day, what I'll say is let's wait for the process to take its natural course, which I believe it will take its natural course. So whether or not it is illegal, we would find out soon enough. I'm sure by today this matter will be resolved one way or the other. So it's not a question about feelings or thinking that something is wrong. It's a question of law. When the NDC had an issue with the High Court initially in the mandamus application that they weren't granted a hearing and they weren't made parties to the suit because they had filed a joint application, what did we see? They applied for a writ of certiorari at the Supreme Court to quash the decision of the High Court. What happened? The Supreme Court, in its wisdom, decided that 4 out of the 6 applications that had been made, yes, indeed, certiorari will be granted to quash those orders of mandamus. So we should go back to the High Court for the High Court to give the NDC a hearing. And that was complied with by everyone. So if the decision now, after the mandamus has been heard and the decision has been arrived at, we just follow the due process of law and we would get a resolution one way or the other. Remember that all that we're going through is a legal process. Take the politics outside and all the nuances and things of that sort. It's a legal process that must be complied with. Elections are legal processes. They are processes that must be complied with.
All right, Doc.
Like you said, compilation of all the results in all the polling stations in a constituency before you can have a valid declaration in law. So to the extent that an announcement is made at the polling station, not based on all the polling station results, I'm sorry, but that cannot by any stretch of the imagination be deemed to be a declaration in law. And everyone knows this.
Okay. Please confirm for me, you are part of the lawyers for the NPP, are you not? Is that a confirmation? You are part of the lawyers for the NPP?
Yes,
okay.
And I'm expressing a legal opinion based on my expertise as well.
Right, thank you. I just wanted to clarify that before I move on to Dr. Rashid Tanko. Doc, I'm sure you've listened to Dr. Budu now. So what do you make of the things that he has said?
Your call has been put on hold. Please wait.
Do I still have Dr. Rashid Tanko with me? Yeah.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes. He says it's just legal processes.
I'm not surprised you asked him that question. I know he was just doing the same MPP propaganda. He was not speaking of law. He was speaking
I just wanted to clarify, Doc.
No, that's right. But I'm happy you have put him on that strict proof. He was speaking MPP propaganda. He wasn't speaking law. I say these are the problem we have in Ghana. Okay, if you should have put that MPP lenses somewhere, and where his law lenses and go through it. What is he talking about? Who told him that you cannot make declarations without necessarily going through all the polling stations? Who told him? Where did he learn that thing from? How was John Mahama declared? Was he not declared without 9 constituencies? Was he not declared without the 9 constituencies? What is he talking about? You see, these are the things they do and mess up everybody in the country. You should stop their MPP propaganda, and let's face it. And I'm saying that it doesn't lie in the judge's mouth to make a declaration based on a Mendemus application, which he turned it to be, disguised it in the form of a election petition. That's what they were doing.
Okay.
We know the kind of collusion that went through that process. Look, and I'm saying that if you want us to go that path, we will go that path and they will see. I see, we know what they have done.
Dr.
And we are going to make sure that we are not going to allow it to stand.
Okay,
I'm saying that
let's look at the bottom line, right? In terms of the results that we have so far, in Tema Central, the EC, what's his name? Mr. Forson secured 18,870 votes, narrowly defeating Ebi Bright, who had 18,815 votes. For Okwankwe Central, we have Patrick Yabuama with 21,099 votes, and Baba Sadiq had 19,368 votes. And then in Techiman South, after collating all the results now, we have Mr. Kosa has 46,663 votes, while Christopher Bayere has 43,429 votes. Bottom line, are these results going to be contested by the NDC?
Of course, the thing we are going to allow it to stand.
And what's your reason? does your pink sheet or your own independently collated results, is it different from what we have right now from the EC?
Look, what you have from the EC is a creation of MPP and Electoral Commission put together. They even brought their own people to do declaration. Do you know that we don't have anything like deputy returning officers in our CI? CI 127, tell me which part of it has deputy returning officer? This is what happened at Tema Central yesterday when they were doing their own coalition. Look at the man. He described himself as a deputy returning officer and said, made the correct. So they are telling us today, Boss Manasari can announce presidential results when Jean Mensa is sitting there. Is that what they are telling us?
Dr. Tanko.
When the judge was sitting at the High Court and saying this, I'm saying that those things, if they want us to go into election petition matter, we'll go into the matter. And I'm saying that those declarations so made yesterday were illegal.
Okay, Dr. Tanko, we don't have enough time. I want to be sure. Do you have different numbers from what we have? The numbers I just put out in Tema Central, Okankwe Central, and Techiman South. The independently collated results you have, are they different from what the numbers I just put out?
Sweetie, when the returning officers declare as winners, which number did they use to declare as winners? Which number did they use to declare? Were they not satisfied that the NDC won those seats? They were satisfied in their mind before they made those declarations. So which numbers did they use? Today they have different numbers. They came with, do you know that these people manufactured their own pink sheets and came in and arrived at these numbers? They brought their own pink sheets. Look at what is going on at Ablekumada. That's why there's a stalemate. They brought their own pink. They didn't even have. They just sat on a laptop and designed pink sheets and said these are soft copies. That is what they are doing.
Are you going to put
We've all learned this thing. I am saying that if we are going to follow these figures are manufactured figures at the collation centers by opponents of NDC.
Right. So are you going to put out the figures that you have?
Brought them there and declared themselves.
Dr. Tanko,
we saw it.
Are you going to put out the figures that you have? And we should be wrapping up so briefly. Are you going to put out the figures that you have so everyone can see the difference that you talk about?
Is that what you want us to do? You want us to now turn ourselves to electoral commissioners and start bringing our figures ourselves?
Well, these are the results that are in public.
If we
and
do
you're
that,
saying that
if we go that
they
path,
are illegal.
But we are saying that we are going through the legal process. That is why we are going through it. If you want us to bring figures, I can bring a figure right now. And for whose interest?
Okay.
That is why I'm saying that let's do the thing judiciously so that everybody will know that these are the right things that we are doing. Not MPP manufactured lawyers who will sit down there and then be concocting their own stories and come and pure lies on public platforms.
In a matter of hours, Dr. Tanko, in a matter of hours, the 8th Parliament will exit and we'll have a new Parliament. What are the next steps for you as regards to those 4 disputed constituencies? Next steps?
Our lawyers are in action as I speak now. Our Director of Legal Service, that is Iddrisu Tamaklo and his team, they have their plans and they will not disclose this. We are not disclosing our plans now. When we reach, we'll cross.
Thank
we have
you
it
so
under
much.
our sleeves. We have our plans under our sleeves.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tanko Computer Rashid, and he's Deputy Director for Elections and IT from the NDC. We've lost the Dean of Gimpa School of Law and member of the NPP lawyers, and Dr. Kweku Ajiman Budu, and we've lost him, but that's how we're wrapping up for this belt of conversation. But you want to stay with us because there's still so much more coming your way. We'll be taking a look at that 8th and 9th Parliament exiting and beginning today in a matter of hours. Please stay. We'll be back in a bit. Welcome back. Now, before we go to Parliament, let's spend some time and unravel some details in the President's last State of the Nation address, which he delivered on January 3rd. Now, I mean, there are some highlights, but we're focusing on the economy because the President says they're handing over a strong economy. To quote, he said, Ghana is not broke. And Dr. Saad Iddrisu is an economist, and he joins us in the studio just to discuss the bit of the economy in terms of what the outgoing administration is leaving behind and expectations of the incoming administration. Doc, welcome to the program.
Thank you, and good morning to you, and good morning to all your listeners.
Good morning. Yeah. Thank you for joining us in studio for the first time.
Thank you.
Right. So, obviously, you've been following and dissecting and bisecting some of the things that the President said in terms of the SONA, the very last one, as pertains to the economy. I want your first initial reaction in terms of what you make of the total speech before we get surgical.
Once again, good morning, and good morning to all your listeners. Actually, the speech was, I would say, quite entertaining. I'm from the North, and where we come from, you cannot say someone has lied. So I wouldn't basically be saying the President lied in the SONA, but
he just did.
There were inconsistencies, so let me be more diplomatic. There were a lot of inconsistencies in the President's speech, which I think, I'm not sure whether the economic advisors are to be blamed for projecting or providing incorrect data, or probably the President himself did not just pay attention to the data that were being provided to him. Yeah.
Okay. Now, what exactly are those discrepancies? Let's start there. First, he says the economy is not broke. And according to the latest IMF report we have, they are describing our recovery as fragile. So we shouldn't be jubilating yet, right? But I want to know what you are the economist. Tell us, what are those discrepancies?
Well, if you take a whole economy, or if you look at an economy, you don't limit an economy to just the growth aspect in terms of maybe real GDP or in terms of GDP. And basically, that is what the President, that is what the Finance Minister, and that is what the entire administration is doing by throwing dust into Ghanaians that the economy is growing. Just because quarter 2 or quarter 3, we have achieved our 7.0 growth. But that is not a basis to say that the economy is growing, because the economy encompasses whole aspects, that when you look at other aspects, you realize that we are not doing good as an economy. In fact, this is one of the weakest economy Ghana has ever recorded. And if you permit me, I'll go into the details.
And indicators, for which reason you are arriving at that conclusion.
Exactly.
Yes,
because if you just look at the GDP, well, let's say when you take the entire summation of the GDP, in an economy, someone could contribute more, right, to the growth of the GDP. It doesn't mean that the entire population is doing well. You understand? So probably maybe your contribution to the economy versus the Achim family contribution might be different, because they have their resources. Probably whatever Gabi is contributing is making the President think the economy is doing well. Now, if you break the economy down into the various sectors, you realize that we have energy, which is contributing part of the economy. What do you record under the energy? The government or the President currently is leaving $2 billion debt to the incoming administration. Is it an economy that is doing well? Obviously no. Because if the economy was doing well, we will not be leaving $2 billion debt to the next administration. Dollars, $2 billion debt. That is just one aspect, energy sector. Now come to the banking sector. That is the financial sector. Banks made losses under this current administration to the tune of 60 billion, including the Bank of Ghana. That is not an economy that is doing well. If the economy is doing well, we will not be recording such losses. The government, in order to salvage some of these banks, promised that they were establishing a 1.5 billion Ghana Financial Stability Fund to salvage some of these banks. Up to date, it hasn't been established. So the next administration, which is the NDC administration, is likely to face serious banking crisis if this 1.5 billion fund is not established. And so far, according to my checks, we only had 250 million commitments from the World Bank. It's not even in there fully yet. You understand? So you are handing over a collapsed banking sector to the next administration, and yet you are claiming that you have done well. That is not an economy that is doing well. Now let's come to even their so much touted free high school, the education sector. Basically, our education has been limited to only free high school now. No one is talking about basic, no one is talking about junior, no one is talking about tertiary. They have all basically collapsed. You could look at reports on the basic sector, which indicates that the government has completely neglected it. Even their own free high school, there is a lot of inconsistencies in the data. The president is telling us that 5.7 million Ghanaians have benefited from free high school. His finance minister in his budget is also telling us 3.1 million. So you could tell that there's a lot of data inconsistency. That's why I started by saying that I cannot say the president lied because he's an elder, but unless there's a lot of inconsistencies. And I at least expected that coming from a president. I mean, that's the highest office of the land that you shouldn't expect such lies to be coming from. Again, if you come to the business side, look at the current monetary policy. It's as at November, as at October, it's around 27%. Within this government, it went as high as 30%. And the monetary policy rate tells you the cost of doing business in an economy. It tells you that businesses are struggling in this economy. So many investors have left because they are not able to do business. You can set your monetary policy rate as high as 30%, bring it down to 27% and expect businesses to stay. Cost of borrowing is high. Local and small-scale businesses are all collapsing.
By then, I'm just doing this comparison for clarity. I remember that, I think it was Kofi Ejia, a data analyst and researcher, and he mentioned that as at the time John Mahama was leaving office, we're doing around the same figure, around 31%. But even that, we didn't say that he was handing over a bad economy. And from everything I've heard so far, I'll still give you time to get through your thoughts, but everything I've heard so far, it looks like our problem comes down to debt. The country is in debt. And in terms of the indicators like employment, education, there are some, there's a lot of more work that needs to be done in those areas. Is it not possible that the growth we saw before the crash, that's COVID-19, Russia-Ukraine war, which the government said is the reason for that economic tailspin, is just what they're trying to recover from, and that's what they're calling strong. The recovery from the crash and how we're doing now is what they're calling strong.
They are just looking at the GDP and basing the fact that there's a recovery. But I want Ghanaians, I want us to look beyond that and look at the entire economy. Look at all the sectors, because if you are projecting or if you are saying that the economy is recovering, all these sectors that I've just talked about should also see the recovery. But we are not seeing that. Okay. You get it? So you cannot conclude that the economy is in a state of recovery. The economy is not recovering at all. And you see, if you go even into economic literature, they will caution you to always be careful about using GDP as a measure of growth of an economy, because that in itself doesn't portray growth. Even the real GDP that countries use doesn't portray total growth. So if you want to digest, if you want to analyze the entire growth of an economy, you need to look at other sectors and see if the growth are going simultaneously. If it is not, that means that the economy is not growing. It could just be that one or two businesses in the economy are those contributing to that GDP that you are saying. So at the end of the day, you are going to find the entire population in abject poverty, which the World Bank report stated. Over 8 million Ghanaians are in abject poverty. Is that an economy that is doing well? I think it's basically not. And if time will permit, I mean, your data analysts, they could show some of the parts, page 3 of the data. Before, when the NDC was leaving power in 2016, inflation was around 15.4%. As at October now, inflation is 22.1%. That is the World Bank data. You understand? This is not an economy that is doing well. Food, inflation itself, as at December 2016, it was 9.3. As at October, this is the current data from the Bank of Ghana, it's 22.8%. Yet they told us they have done planting for food and jobs, but you don't see the reflection on the economy. This is not an economy that is doing well. Our public debt itself, as at the time NDC was living around July thereabout, based on the data, it was 109. By December, it was around 122 billion cedis.
Now we are over 700.
Now we are over 700, 761, according to this current data, as at October. Putting our debt to GDP around 74.6%. We are almost hitting the same target we were when we did the DDEP. You understand? So if care is not taken in the next 2 to 3 years, the incoming administration will be faced with severe debt crisis.
Right.
And if you are not careful or care is not taken, we may be having another DDEP or going back to another IMF program. So you don't say the economy is doing well because it is obviously not doing well in that regard. And if you look at even the policy rate, which I already talked about, I mean, as at August, it was 26%. It was still high, but it went to as high as 30%, and now they've brought it to 27%, which is still high. We don't even want to talk about the city because it's so embarrassing when you even bring in the city. You understand? You took it around 4 cedi to $1, and you said that at that point, John Mahama was incompetent. But look at where we are today. We are hitting 14, 15. So this is not an economy that is doing well.
What is the danger in not clarifying this? What is the danger in just going with what I know you speak to numbers, and I just want clarity. What is the danger in going with the president or the outgoing administration's rhetoric that the economy is actually doing well? Does that mean that the expectations on the incoming administration become excessively high? Or what's the danger there?
One of the dangers is what you just said. There will be high expectation on the incoming government. And two, Ghanaians will not appreciate the efforts of the incoming government because there's the lie has been created that the incoming administration is taking over a strong economy, so the expectation is that they should start hitting the ground. But that is not right. In fact, even money to organize this swearing-in ceremony was a challenge to the government.
Was it?
Yes, it was a serious challenge to the government. You understand?
How did you come by that information?
Don't worry about that. But I'm telling you on record, to organize this swearing-in, it basically tells you that the country is broke.
But the president said the country is not broke.
Because the president is lying to us.
Is he being misinformed, do you think?
It could be misinformation
because he
from
doesn't
his
speak
economic
to numbers.
He doesn't speak to numbers, but as a leader, you listen to your economic advisors. I don't want to push all the blame to the economic advisors because we have two categories of leaders, those who listen and those who doesn't listen. So sometimes as an economic advisor, I've been an advisor at my former jobs and places where the governor and other stakeholders, they consult you on economic data. If you tell them, they listen and they go with what you tell them. There are leaders to who you would tell, they also go ahead and report what they want to report. So at that point in time, I don't want to put all the blame on the economic advisor. But there's so much inconsistencies with what the president is putting out. Even with our mid-year budget like this, the 2025 quarter one budget, we could have had a total government shutdown. You understand? It tells you we are in a serious crisis. That is what I want all of us as Ghanaians to know, that the incoming administration is not coming in to inherit gold and roses. No. It's coming in with a struggle. It's coming in with serious debt that have been left behind. This government intentionally, deliberately created these huge debts.
How do you deliberately create huge debts, Dr. Isaac?
If you have a finance minister whose company stands to benefit each time Ghana goes for a loan, that is deliberate. Let's be realistic. Because if I know that if I go for a loan, my company stands to benefit in commissions and all that, I'll keep going for multiple loans. So it's deliberate.
Okay. So now I'm curious to know, is there any aspect of our economy that is actually doing well?
Honestly, you cannot say completely a government hasn't done well. But looking at this government, it is hard to pinpoint where they did well.
We have the indicators, no? So is there any of
that is what I'm trying to see, which indicator actually points to the fact that this government has done well. Because I was hoping that they will have completed Agenda 111, which will have been an impressive achievement of the government, but it's zero. Even the 3 Agenda 111 hospitals they said have been completed. They should come out and point to us which hospital, how many patients are there, so that we'll go and verify for ourselves. It's zero. None of the hospitals have been completed. All the sectors of the economy, just look around, all the sectors, you know, Akufo-Addo could have gone down in history as the best president with free high school. Honestly, it's a good policy, brilliant policy. Because if you educate the human resource, then you have a growing population.
Great. So free SHS did not do anything to reduce the literacy rate in the country?
Because free SHS ended up producing quantity instead of quality, to the point that people get into the universities, they cannot even do basic arithmetic. I'm not the one saying it. The university professors, they came out and were saying it. So at that point in time, 10, 15 years' time, we are going to have a generation of dummies. You wouldn't want your doctor, your mother or your son or whoever to be treated by such a nurse, such a doctor. You understand? That is the scenario, or that is what free high school is doing to our generation right now. You and I that paid to go for quality education, our generation will be better off from the next generation that will be coming. I don't think you want that. That is why you see parents struggling to even send their kids to private schools and pay for them to get quality education.
Okay, but Doc, my question is, has it improved our literacy rate?
It hasn't.
Free
if you look at free high school hasn't improved any of
I know you are the economist, but the data I have, according to the latest population, that's 2021 population and housing census, it says there's been an improvement from the 2010 census, which was now 67.1%, coming down all the way from 66. We are currently at 67 as per the 2021 census, and we're coming from 69.8%. That's some reduction, is it not?
It may be some reduction, but believe me, in terms of quality, it isn't, because you are only producing in terms of quantity, but you are not producing in terms of quality.
Okay.
You understand? And we've politicized the free high school to the extent that children are deliberately being passed. I'm not the one saying it. The schools have said it themselves, either through cheating and all those sort of stuff, just so that they will get into the university, just so that it will look as if the government is doing well. That is not the free high school we want for our children. And that is why I'm telling you that even the current administration, if you go deeper, those with children, do their children attend free high school? They say no, because they go and pay for private. You understand? That is why the NDC under 2015-2016 were kind of starting with the progressively free high school, making sure that you need to put the right infrastructure in place. Currently, my family brother, Mohammed, he attends St. John Senior High School. He's in Form 2, that is second year. He's currently home. But school is in session. Only first years and third years are in school. Second years are home. What sort of free high school are we running? Then when the third years or first years are coming home, that is when they get to go, somewhere in February. So you come home and you sit like 3 to 4 months. Basically, whatever you've learned in school, you definitely forget all that.
Okay.
You understand? So that is what I'm looking at.
Right.
I mean, I'm not a road contractor. Maybe, probably, they may say they've done well in the road sector.
Yes, in fact, they said this administration...
that one, I don't have the data.
Constructed the most
roads. So maybe a road engineer or a road contractor could speak to that. Yeah. But the areas that I am looking at, honestly, I try to look at just one indicator that you could say that the government has done well in the economy.
Okay. So let's go back to, in a way of bringing the conversation towards its end. Give us those indicators. Maybe we can peg it at 5, and what the actual figures are, and then we can take it up from there.
This is what's the name? This is from the Bank of Ghana. Okay. That's the report. So if you go back to the ones that I showed you the inflation data, if they could project it again. I've showed you food inflation. That is one of the statistics before and after what we witnessed. I showed you the public debt before and after what we've witnessed. You get it. I showed you monetary policy before and after. Then the cedi depreciation before and after. You understand? These are all indicators. I don't want to say the president is lying, but I want the viewership to be the judge. Because if you said the economy is doing well, then the economy that was doing well was the one you came and inherited.
What lesson can the incoming administration learn from how the outgoing administration run the economy? What key lessons should they not miss? They ought not miss?
I think the current administration is faced with a serious crisis. That is the incoming administration. And the lessons to be learned from this current government is how not to govern an economy, basically. I mean, pardon my words, I want to be respectful to the president as possible, you understand. Look at corruption alone. They took the economy when we were doing around what? They said the NDC government was very corrupt. And this is from the Auditor General's report, right? At that point in time, financial irregularities was around 1.4 billion. And then the NADO, it has jumped to 16 billion. Is that an economy that is doing well? An economy riddled with corruption?
Yeah, that's another one.
You get it. That's another one. So basically, this government shouldn't be greedy. When I say shouldn't be greedy, they should take Ghanaians at heart. They should take the economy at heart. And among themselves, among the NDC, we should eschew greed. Because greed is one of the factors that led to MPP's defeat. You understand? And again, greed leads to people not getting the right positions they desire. Because you end up living competency and only reward loyalty without incompetence. And once you do that, you mess up big time. You understand? Loyalty is good, competency is good. Make sure that you reward both. Because you need competent people in positions of power to be able to deliver on your mandate as a government. And again, we are faced with a serious debt crisis. Currently, as, what's the name? Our interest payments alone on debt is around, just for Q1, it's around $1.4 billion. So the government is inheriting huge debts and huge interest payments. And there are 3 options out of this, basically. One is either to kind of, just go the Achampong method, which is what? Default on all your debts and not pay. But there are consequences to this method. Yeah. Consequences in the sense that you have bad credit rating, you lose investor confidence, and again, you will be inability to borrow. You can't borrow from the Eurobond. Right. That is one method. The second method is just continue the rat race, which are called the rat rates. Go keep borrowing, just use the borrowing to keep paying your interest.
Rob Peter to pay Paul
till whenever the next people come into power, you leave your troubles for them, that kind of rat race. Or 3, you could think outside the box. So that would depend on the economic management team, those, or those who are part of that team, as well as the finance ministry, those put in charge. You understand? Thinking outside the box will be to start looking at other options, like debt swap. You understand? It's not new. It's like, it's still coming up. Other countries are doing it. We can do it too. We have a serious climate issue, which is galamsey, right? We destroy the river bodies, we destroy the forest bodies. We can get into a debt swap with nature conservative bodies. One of those bodies is called the Nature Conservancy. They deal with climate and all that. A lot of countries are beginning to think outside the box. You can't keep going to IMF all the time. Yeah. We've gone there 17 times. It's time we think outside the box to look at other options. As we speak, 20 countries are exploring this new option of debt swap, especially with the debt for nature or debt for climate change. Belize is one of those countries. They did a debt for nature swap, and they have been able to reduce the country's external debt by 10% of their GDP. So it tells you that whatever monies you will have used to pay your debts and interest, those could be used for developmental purposes. Those could be used to save the economy. So if Ghana is interested in those at the helm of affairs, start exploring this option. Finance Ministry, economic advisors and, all those people in charge. Start looking at these options. As we speak, Gabon, Sri Lanka, Ecuador, Cape Verde, these are all countries that are looking into this new angle. Because if you are faced with serious debt, you cannot continue with the rat race.
Okay.
You understand?
But though that is for, in terms of dealing with our debt.
Yes.
But on a more general note, in terms of the economy, that's my last question to you. What should the incoming administration do in terms of what should they focus on to put the economy back on track?
The people are the economy. You get it? The economy is not an abstract term. We are the economy. You and I, the people are the economy. So if the incoming administration focus on the people, then we'll have a better economy.
Okay.
Focusing on the people means that creating sustainable jobs, not party jobs like NAPCO, where people work for some time, they are cut off. No, you cannot have a sustainable economy like that. Create long-term sustainable jobs. And again, not slavery jobs. Somebody cannot be in Accra and be receiving 700 a month. That is slavery.
It happens.
Well,
still
it's
happening.
slavery.
People take less than that.
Yeah, but even if it is that, the government must lead by example for the private sector to follow. If the government is paying people by 700, private people will pay 500, 400, you understand? So that is why I said government should try to create sustainable jobs, long-term sustainable jobs for the people. If government focus on the people, everything will fall in place.
Okay. So just focus on the people.
Focus on the people.
Thank you so much, Dr. Issa Iddrisu. Dr. Issa Iddrisu is an economist at Louisiana Economic Development, which means you advise the governor in terms of the economy, right?
Yes, yes. It's
fantastic.
Part of, and not only the governor, other stakeholders.
Other stakeholders as well.
Yes, other departments, yes.
Well,
that is one thing I noticed over there. They take economic matters seriously. In Ghana,
it's like we leave it to chance, eh?
We leave it to chance.
Thank you for coming. But I do want to say, though, just something you said about focusing on the people. I think that there's a new wave of patriotism sweeping through the young Ghanaian. Now we know that we are the people who give power to our leaders, and so we know how to demand accountability from them. And I think the incoming administration, they understand the shifts in the atmosphere. We're not voting for you because we are affiliated to your party anymore. We are voting for you based on what you can do to change our lives.
That is true.
And that's something that I think the incoming administration should also focus on, not to take us for granted.
When I was coming, someone called me and was like, if he was Nanado, he would not even appear in public. Because the Ghanaian people have just shown him that his government was poor. And the defeat is not only for Baumia, the defeat is for Nanado.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you so much for coming, Dr. Issa Iddrisu.
Thank you.
And stay with us because we're coming back and then we're taking you straight to Parliament in terms of the exit and the, should I call it re-entry of the 8th and 9th Parliament. Stay with us. We're back in a bit. In a matter of hours, the 8th Parliament will be dissolved. A new Speaker of Parliament will be elected and the 9th Parliament will begin their work. President-elect John Dramani Mahama is pushing for current Speaker Alban Bagbin and in fact is written to the NDC MPs mandating them to retain him. Let's discuss this. It's a great lineup. We have Dr. Asa Sante, political scientist. We have Dr. John Osai Kwapong, CDD fellow. We have Clement Akolo. He's Comms Director for Parliamentary Network Africa. Of course, standing by in studio with me is Isaac Kofieje, Research and Data Analyst. And in fact, I want to start with Isaac because he's going to give us a general overview of the 8th and 9th Parliaments. Kofieje, it's good to see you.
Good to see you too, sweetie.
Take us away.
Well, so this is actually how the 9th Parliament will be. But of course, this morning we'll be blending both the 9th and 8th Parliament, trying to analyze how the 8th Parliament panned out and perspectives for the 9th Parliament. So if you see this donut chart, that gives you a clear indication where the majority and minority will be in the 9th Parliament. Although, of course, we are not done with the composition of how the 9th Parliament will look like. But per the data that we've been putting together, we know that the NDC at the moment are holding about 183 out of the 276 and MPP 88. We still have independent candidates still around 4, very significant. And I'll tell you something about the independent composition of Parliament in this Fourth Republic. We still have just one outstanding, constituency to be declared. I think it's Ablekuma North, right? Yeah. And if that comes in, I mean, it will tell us whether the NDC will be able to get outright the two-third majority that they've been looking for. It's not just about getting majority, but getting it in a super way at the moment is what the NDC is looking out for. So 83 will not really give you the absolute majority, but if they're able to get 184, one more, it will show you that they will have that absolute majority that they are looking for. And if you look at, different parliaments under the Fourth Republic, you will know that the independent candidates always, sort of like decide to roll or play ball with the majority. So in this case, I am hoping that what happened in 2000, where NPP actually had exactly half of the members of the House, 100 out of 200, and they were able to convince, other political parties to come on board. Back then, our parliament was very, very dynamic. You used to have more than 4 parties in Parliament. This time around, it's always been the 2 political parties, MPP and NDC. And if you are lucky, we'll have some, independent candidate. That's what is going to pan out this year. We're not going to have other political parties, but definitely the 4 independent candidates you see here, very significant. It will be interesting to see which side they choose to play ball with, and if that will actually give the NDC the supermajority that they are actually looking for. Now, talking about how Parliament has looked like since the Fourth Republic, this chart on the Smart Wall gives or paints a picture of how this has been. We decided to use this line graph to tell you how, Parliament has been in terms of the arrangement, majority and minority, how close has it ever been? And we know, of course, the 8th Parliament, which has a lot of, features, was the one that delivered for the first time in the Fourth Republic a hung parliament where both political parties had 138, 130, had to take the independent candidates who, of course, cross-capital to the NPP to break that boundary. And if you look at it, you will see that right from 1996, there was always that clear difference between majority and minority. And just look at the gap analysis from 1996, 2000 was very close. I was talking to you about how the NPP managed to get exactly half of that number, had to convince other political parties, the PNCs and all of those ones to come on board. That happened in the 2000 or the 2nd Parliament. And in the 4th Parliament or the 3rd Parliament, we saw the gap widening. NPP actually had a very clear majority in 2004, starting from 2005. 2008, we saw that closeness again in Parliament. Then 2012, when John Dramani Mahama was given his first term, he won with 50.3% or 7%. And he was able to get 125 out of the 275. That was the first time we were actually moving from 230 members of Parliament to 275. And the NDC won majority, was very clear. Then 2016. People always say that what happened in 2020 was exactly 2024 was exactly the same thing that happened in 2016. So just look at the gap between MPP and NDC in terms of the parliamentary composition or the arrangement. 169 versus 106. That was a super clear majority for the NPP, but they were not able to cross the line of 184 or get more than that to get the absolute majority, the 2/3 majority that the NDC is looking for. Now, very clear, we've spoken about 2020, but just look at the 2024. This is the widest gap we've ever had. It didn't even happen in 1996, possibly 1992, because the NPP decided to boycott that parliamentary election. But since 1996 and 2016, we've never had such a wide, majority. And this is the first time that is going to be delivered to the NDC. We'll see what they will do with it. We all saw the features of the 8th Parliament where, the infamous e-levy was passed. The brawl in Parliament,
in fact,
the election of
I like where you're going. So I think it's a great opportunity for me to bring in our guest. Dr. John Osai-Kwapong, good morning. Happy New Year to you on the show, if I can hear you.
Good morning to you too, and Happy New Year as well.
Great. Dr. Kwame Asasante, are you with us? Good morning.
I am with you.
Fantastic.
Good morning,
in fact, yes, you are my two favorite doctors with hyphenated names. Dr. Asasante, I'm saying you are my two favorite doctors with hyphenated names, Dr. Asasante and Dr. Osai-Kwapong. But let me start with you.
Is that we all come from the same family.
No okay, but I want to start with you, Dr. John Osai-Kwapong. From your perspective, I know this is a review of the 8th Parliament and maybe expectations of the 9th, but let's do a more general assessment first before we get surgical with it. From your perspective, how do you assess the effectiveness of parliamentary oversight? In fact, of this 8th Parliament, what would be your general assessment of how they fared?
Overall, there were very great expectations because of the configuration, right? That people expected that, given the numbers, we would see more, or should I say, we would see greater oversight of the executive. But I think we saw more, spirited fights, and opposition from the NDC minority in Parliament. Some way, somehow, though, in as slim as their majority was on key policy issues, on issues of the budget, the MPP majority still found a way to muscle its way out of some of the issues that came to the floor. E-levy, for example, is one of the policies that immediately comes to mind. That you would have thought that, given some of the public outcry against the idea and the strong opposition that the NDC mounted in Parliament, that it would have actually resulted in the defeat of that policy idea, but it didn't. What the last comment that I'll add, though, is that for me, what it ended up doing, though, is we saw a lot more adversarial type of politics, where the two parties were constantly at each other. And I think it gave both parties a rethinking of, is this the kind of parliament we want to see in the near future, which is closely divided, which is why you would see in the 2024 election, as part of their campaign strategies, emphasis on, if you vote for our presidential candidate, please remember to also vote for our parliamentary candidate. But that would be my initial comments.
Right. Dr. Kwame Asasante, given the unique power dynamics of the 8th Parliament and how, should I say, the dynamics shaped governance in Ghana, how well do you think they fared, would you say?
I think we had the best of times, and in terms of work, we had the best that we could ever pray for. Given the tight nature of the numbers that we had in Parliament, we were not expecting anything more than that. But for me, what stood out clearly was the use of power and how it was checked, right? The government didn't have absolute majority or even more numbers to, as it were, to play down the work of the minority. So there was a real check of, power. And for me, it resonated well with me in the sense that any power that is not checked properly is subject to abuse. So we saw a real check of power, and that translated into policies that they churn out, that they needed to, do the consultation and then consensus building on that in order to arrive at a decision that will, rub off everybody. And that is refreshing to me, because then we saw how they had to all the time work together as a team, but not as political entities who were championing their own interests. So you saw the national interest, at least to a large extent, protected. All right. Another thing that also came in was the fact that the real test of rule of law and separation of powers was brought to the fore. Let's start with the rule of law. Every issue, people thought that if they did not get a clear signal from Parliament, they rushed toward the court to seek redress. For me, these are the building blocks of every democracy, that you don't resort to violence, you don't resort to unorthodox ways of doing things, but that you go to the law and then seek redress. For me, it was refreshing. It had its own challenges, but it's also brought to sharp focus. People thought that the Parliament had absolute powers to do what the Constitution has said, because it's a separate entity. So the issue of separation of powers, people were confused as to whether it was working. But I can say without fear of contradiction that separation of powers in the strictest form as propounded by Baron de Montesquieu doesn't exist anywhere. What exists is what checks and balances, that the bulk of your functions are given to you, but slices are given to others to serve as a check on you. So even though Parliament had enormous powers to do its basic work, there are other oversight responsibility on the part of other institutions, i.e. the judiciary, i.e. the executive, on the part of Parliament. We saw that playing out in, and almost ruffle the foundation or the feathers of Parliament. And for me, it was a good thing, because it gave us opportunity to test our democracy, the institutions that support democracy. We saw how, they responded to that. You saw the legislature being, attacked. You saw the Supreme Court also brought to question. You saw how the executive also fed into all these things. And the people who were the recipient of all this and the basis of democracy, you saw their reaction and all that. For me, all these activities gave us food for thought. And today, we know that there are certain gray areas. If we want this ninth Parliament to survive and survive forever, we should be able to strengthen the frontiers and make sure that we inject in more energy, and make sure also that all the dots are placed at the right position and the T's are crossed. And that, if we are able to do this, we should have a very interesting Parliament. I must also add that despite the fact that the NDC is gradually moving towards an absolute majority, for me, it doesn't change anything at all, because any power that is given to any human being or institution, there is also a corresponding checks on that. And even if it doesn't work in Parliament, we, the people outside, we can also speak truth to power. And our action is what has resulted in the dynamics we have in Parliament. So it tells us that we are the ultimate recipient of all the actions, and sovereignty resides in us.
Consensus-based model, or are we seeing deepened polarization? I saw Dr. John Osai-Kwapong mention adversarial politics. Which is it? Is it a deepened polarization, or is it more consensus-based model now?
Are you talking to me, Siki?
Yes, please. Yes, Dr. Asante. I mean, the question is for both of you, but let me start with you. I'm saying that you said this Parliament has given us some things to think about, food for thought. And I'm asking if, does that mean, or can we infer from the work they did, that Ghana's Parliament is evolving towards a more consensus-based model, or are we seeing a deepened polarization? And I also added that because Dr. John Osai-Kwapong mentioned adversarial politics that we saw, which is it? Are we moving towards a consensus-based, parliamentary model, or are we seeing deepened polarization?
Parliament work has always been with consensus. That is the pivot around which Parliament work revolves. There's no doubt about that. But time and again, sometimes you have controversies. You recall that last, Parliament, at least 2024, or from its inception, from the 2021, we saw, because of the hanged nature, obviously you should expect controversies, and controversies were, all over. But you also can attest to the fact that in spite of the controversies, MPs managed to do parliamentary business. Whoever thought that they will be able to get around e-levy? But at the end of the day, they all smoked peace pipe. They, sat down and dialogue. Consensus became the order of the day, and they passed it, right? They were able to do a lot of things based on consensus. But it is true that at the tail end, there were certain disagreements that also shook the foundation of Parliament. It is to be expected of a Parliament of that nature. So that is fine. But all in all, you realize that when there are difficulties and they want to build peace, they know what to do. But from where I sit, I don't see any, Parliament that is going to be divided and create problems and all that.
Right.
We've gone past that era. What we are looking forward to is that in spite of the great numbers the NDC has, they will be able to do a good job. And thank God you have a speaker like Urban Bagben today. Obviously, I have no doubt in my mind that the people will vote him into office and all that. He is going to be that fine line to ensure a proper balance and all that. Because of the numbers, you need somebody who will put his foot down. We need somebody who will be able to ginger the minority to stand on their feet in spite of their numbers and all that. So I believe all is going to work out in a certain manner. But more effort also must come from we the people, the kind of input we give into parliamentary work, so that they don't take us for granted. When we leave everything to them, obviously party interests will reign supreme. But remember that power emanates from the people. We are the basis of democracy.
Right.
On that note, we need to contribute our quota more effectively to shape the frontiers of the work that you do there.
Thank you. Dr. Osai-Kwapong, do you agree?
To a large extent, yes. My slight disagreement with my big brother, Dr. Sasante, is the fact that I still think that we're seeing a lot more polarization, right? And if you look at the 8th Parliament, you saw that hardening of positions. You saw quite a few more walkouts by either side on some of those issues. And yes, even though things went through, I didn't see it as a reflection of consensus building, but more of as a way of the majority, even how slim their majority was, still being able to muscle their way through. Now, you're going into an 8th Parliament where just shy of one seat, the NDC would have, a supermajority. But even without that, they have a really strong majority in Parliament, which there is that temptation then to continue with the old adage that says the minority can have its say, but the minority would have its say, but the majority would have its way. There's no incentive for the NDC in principle to try and build any consensus. I saw a joke on social media where somebody said, look, the NDC can even run double track and they will still have majority in Parliament. But having said that, some important changes to the standing orders of Parliament happened under the 8th Parliament. And it's actually one of the good things that came out of the 8th Parliament, which hasn't gained enough traction. From what I also understand, it was work that was begun in the 7th Parliament. But having said that, there are a number of important committees that would now be chaired by the party that is in the minority. I think the Budget Committee, Already the Public Accounts Committee is chaired by the party in minority, the Appointments Committee. And then I think there are one or two very important committees that would be chaired by the minority party. For me, that would be a good thing to allow the minority party to be able to make contribution and also have a significant say in matters that would come before Parliament. And hopefully some of those mechanisms at the committee level would allow both parties, as you said, to move more towards a consensus building approach and move away from some of the deepening polarization and the adversarial nature of our politics.
Right.
Sometimes.
Thank you so much. Let's get some more perspective from Kofi Eje, and then we'll come back and discuss some legislative achievements and failures and structural reforms, if any. Kofi Eje, tell us more.
Also, I mean, talking about the composition of Parliament, I believe that, I mean, the regional distribution is very, very important. We'll come to the election of the speakership. I mean, that also tells you the direction of that the Parliament will also go. This will not be the first time should Alban Bagbin maybe not get the vote to become the speaker. We all know what happened in 2021 when the NPP actually presented Professor Michael Quay to be re-elected. We all saw what happened. But what will be different this time around is the numbers. And this current Parliament, just like the 8th Parliament, will definitely be about the numbers. And this time around, the favor is actually, or the domain is in that of the NDC, and even if you have majority or some of your members chairing committees, I mean, the numbers will always mean when it comes to decision making. But on the smart world, we want to look at you know, the regional distribution. It is important to point out the numbers for both sides in terms of the regional distribution, which side. I mean, for the first time, we have NPP not having representation or members of parliament in about, I think, more than 3 regions. So we'll be looking at that and the independent candidates as well. So let's start with some of the swing regions. Most of them have been bellwether, and usually if you want to test the direction of the country, you look at how the 3 bellwether, you know, regions. Greater Accra wasn't in 2020, but still remains a bellwether in 2024. We want to look at it. If you look at the Western region, for instance, and the 17 you know, seats that were available, just look at it. The NDC takes 15 of the 17 seats, leaving just 2 for the NPP. I mean, in terms of the independents, just 0. I mean, the Central region, 18 versus 4. Greater Accra, just look at it, 28 versus 3. And they also have the voter region, 18-0. Now, if you look at the numbers, it will tell you why we have such numbers in Parliament. But the interesting thing is that MPP will not have MPs in regions like the Bono East region and also in the OT region. They have 0 MPs there. In the Upper West region, which has always been the case, 0 also. I mean, there were times that they actually made some improvement. But in terms of the newbies, right, Sweetie, it would be good to talk about the debutants. We are still studying the data. But what we have is that at least there could be about some 120 debutants in this, you know, 9th Parliament. That signals a lot. That, you know, tells you about the nature of how the 9th Parliament will be, where we'll be taking you through some of the experienced hands who will not be coming back again, some of which decided not to even, you know, do a re-election in the primary, some of whom also lost in the main election. But 120 debutants, that is very significant in the 9th Parliament, and to really, really, you know, shape how discussions will be, experience and what have you will come to you know, play. And we all know that Mahama wants to operate a very lean government. And people are saying that if you look at the sheer number of MPs that he has at the moment, just look at it, going to elect some 60 or 65 ministers and members of in their deputies from 183 or 84, it will be very difficult. But maybe where he would take a shield, it will be possibly, shelter will be the fact that you have a number of debutants, of which the NDC has majority of that.
Kofi, I do want to bring in our guest again, but do you have some more slides to share with us?
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's get through yours quickly before we get back to our guests.
I mean, I just wanted us to go through female representation. I wanted to come have a discussion. I don't know if it's time, it would be the right time to speak about that, but for me, female representation in Parliament is very, very important. We've been championing this over the years. And if you just look at the chart on the smart wall, you can see an increment in the numbers. But the fear is that we may have a dip in the 9th Parliament, looking at how some of the outcomes in some of the constituencies actually went. It could be that we may end up with about 40 or the same number of females in Parliament, just like we had in the 8th Parliament. At the moment, we can count about 39, which is still around the 15% we had in the 8th Parliament. But the story is much clearer when you look at it on the percentage terms. That you have a Parliament and you have just females just comprising about just 15%. The highest we've had so far is 15%. And that was a big achievement for us in the 8th Parliament. In the 9th Parliament, we may have the same 15%, but in terms of absolute decimal points, it may be lesser than what we had in the, you know, the 8th Parliament. So we'll be speaking more on you know, the distribution of the females, but I think that I should go back to
yes, thank
when we come back, we'll look at the distribution.
Thank you, Kofi. So let me throw this question to Dr. John Osai-Kwapong. What challenges and opportunities do you foresee for the new Parliament, looking at the number of new entrants that we have coming into the 9th Parliament?
So in terms of the challenges, especially as you look at the number of new entrants that you have, it takes quite a bit to get up to speed on, you know, parliamentary business, learning. You know, there's always a learning curve for new parliamentarians, how you navigate parliamentary work, how you navigate floor business, you know, and all of that. That is why, not just in the case of Ghana, but worldwide in every legislative body, you always still want some experienced hands present who can mentor the new ones and who can show them, you know, the ropes. So with that many, excuse me, there's that challenge of working hard to get them up to speed, you know, on the nature of parliamentary business.
Okay.
But in terms of opportunities, there's, again, for me, some of the work that has been done to do some reconfiguration at the committee level provides Parliament an opportunity to allow the minority to be very involved in significant ways on some important matters that would come before the House. Because at the end of the day, a lot of the work happens at the committee level before it comes to the floor. So there is an opportunity to do a lot of work at the committee level.
Okay. And Dr. Kwame Asante, you can reflect on the same question briefly, but what I want to find out from you is that, you know, this 8th Parliament was known for intense debates on budgetary allocation and, you know, fiscal policies. How effective do you think these debates were in shaping sound economic governance? And after you reflect on the question of opportunities and challenges for the new entrants.
Let me look at the opportunities and challenges for the new entrants. We know nobody was born in Parliament. We all go there, build capacity, and then be able to do the work that they are required to do. It is on the basis of this that Parliament also, as part of its, you know, process of bringing everybody up to speed, they have the socialization process where they inculcate certain values in people. They walk them through the ABC of parliamentary work, and out of that, the people also build capacity. We have no hand in strictly determining, you know, whether to maintain experienced people or all that. But the dynamics that are associated with voting and the rest of them shape people who go into Parliament. So when we realize that at a point in time, people have becoming non-performing MPs, obviously we'll kick them out. So we should brace ourselves for these things. And I believe that all over the world, we always have experienced hands they lose them and all that. Sometimes not even through elections, but natural causes such as death. Today, we are speaking about Parliament and we don't have DH Mensa there. It's a very great figure. Those who are even alive are old, they are not around. Kwekuba and Co, they are home as old people and all that. But the good news is that because it has an institution, it has an institutional memory, these things are impacted on people. So in no time, they will learn the ropes and live up to expectation because Parliament is a going concern. That aside, you look at how the activities shape legislation and all that. I think that, generally speaking, they did their best to work out on bills and improve them and all that. But as children of Oliver, we always want improved legislations that will stand the test of time. The good news today is that input into Parliament, you have a lot of think tanks, a lot of scholars who avail their services to Parliament in a form of memorandum that Parliament extend to everybody, including these groups. My brother Osan Kwapons, their Alfred, CDD, IDEC, and the rest, and from certain groups and all that, they have and continue to contribute toward the shaping of our bills and making serious input. So I believe that Parliament will continue to draw on their services so as to shape the work of the 9th Parliament. I have no doubt in my mind that all these things will work. And where there are weaknesses, the think tanks, research institutions are always out there doing research to see where they go wrong, and then they touch on that. I recall, if you read CDD report, early reports, they look at the fact that we did not have, private member bills. If you read a CDD early report, they touch on that because there were findings, research to that effect. Today, private member bills are a feature of Ghanaian lawmaking, and that is a good thing. So we will expect that we'll get those services from those institutions. Of course, when it comes into politics, people run them down, tag them with all manner of names simply because it doesn't go in their favor. But that is to be expected.
Right.
But what I want is that Parliament should make do with all these research work, which is free of charge to them, and then use it to build capacity and make Parliament able to do the work that is required of them.
Thank you, Dr. Kwame Sasson. Now let's move the conversation forward and talk about Alban Bagbin and that mandate that President-elect John Dramani Mahama gave to the NDC MPs. And Dr. John Osai Kwapong, how does the retention or replacement of Alban Bagbin influence parliamentary agenda? I mean, particularly in terms of reforms, legislative priorities, and all that.
I've talked about some of the important changes that were made to the standing orders, the work that was finalized under his watch. And as difficult as the composition of the 8th Parliament made parliamentary business sometimes, I think overall he managed to still keep the House intact. He managed to get important parliamentary work done. And I think that is also because he himself, comes to the role of Speaker as an experienced member of Parliament. He served both as a majority leader as well as a minority leader. And so it's a step in the right direction. I believe that he would bring the same leadership qualities, skills, and everything to the 9th Parliament. The only thing that I would add, though, is that he would have to find a way to make sure that the minority is really heard, which I believe he can and he will. Because again, when you have 180-something seats in Parliament and an almost supermajority, there would always be that temptation on the part of the NDC caucus to feel like they really don't have to, hear the minority side. But I believe that Speaker Bagbin would definitely be able to, use his leadership skills and experience to lead the House and make sure that he treats both sides very fairly.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the Speaker's performance in the 8th Parliament?
I would give him an 8 out of 10.
Okay. Where does the remaining 2 go? What are the gaps that account for those? That's 2 that is missing.
Well, 8 out of 10 is still for me a good score. It was a very difficult parliament, to manage. I think I keep 2 of those points because I feel like some things could have been resolved internally. I mean, I don't entirely blame him for it, but given the configuration, we saw a lot more running to the courts to resolve certain matters that I feel could have been resolved internally, because it has the potential to weaken Parliament as an institution. But I mean, overall, I think an 80% score for him is a good score.
But the issue about going to court, in fact, let me throw that to Dr. Kwame Asah-Asante. Some would argue that it's more about the leadership, parliamentary leadership, and how they manage conflicts between minority and majority factions in Parliament. And we know that the incoming minority are retaining Apenyo Markin. So I guess I'm asking Dr. Kwame Asah-Asante, what role do you think parliamentary leadership plays in managing conflicts? And case in point, the way the NPP ran to courts here and there, and, the commentary that if Osei Mensah Bonsu was the leader, some of these issues might have been avoided.
Let us make it straight here that nobody's service is indispensable. Remember, even if you are the Alpha and Omega, you will die one day. You will not be in Parliament. So, and remember also that every leader has his own style. And but what is interesting is that they try to use the law to address their issue. There is nothing wrong about that. But when it becomes consistent, then it also have its own ramifications on the work of Parliament. But that aside, it brings to sharp focus all that we are talking about, the issue of Parliament sitting down to craft something that would deal with the political questing doctrine, that there are matters that ought to be dealt with at political level instead of legal level. And that need to be, look at and then address. Is something that Ghana must focus the attention on so that we don't spend unnecessary time going to court and all that. Because sometimes when you see the ruling of the court, they hand it down. Yes, but there are certain things that also come to add up onto the problems that we have. The ruling about 97(1)GH, yes, has been handed down. But you and I know that there are also problems. Problem of representation. The 3 months window, that when the Supreme Court at a point in time was saying that the 4 people you want to ask them from Parliament, let them go, because otherwise the people will lose representation. But my question is that 90-day rule, 90-day, 3 months to election, when somebody ceases to be an MP, what happens? Do the people still have representation? So all these things, come up under the umbrella of we looking at what the political question doctrine and see things that Parliament should do that the judiciary should not come in. And when we are able to do this, the consensus will already be done. And then Parliament will be able to do more effective work. In terms of scoring of marks, I will score back then 9/10.
Okay.
And I will leave 1 to what the English scholars will call mechanical accuracy for the dots, the T's and all that. But I will score him now 9, in the sense that he was able to put his foot down and ensure that Parliament did what was expected of it. And I also, from where I sit, I admire his courage, that he was not shaken by any threat or any whatsoever. He stood his grounds and all that. This is a mark of what a leader that we need in Parliament. Fear not, do the right things, and then leave the comments and other noises to be made. It's part of the process.
Okay, thank you so much. So 8 and 9. I do have Edem Agbana joining us via phone. He's one of the new entrants, MP-elects for Ketu North. Edem, welcome to the program. I want to hear from you in terms of readiness to enter Parliament in a matter of hours, and what challenges you foresee and how you intend to fix them. Oh, I'm told we just dropped, Edem Agbana's line just dropped, unfortunate. But let's go on with the conversation. So, Dr. Kwame Asah-Asante, what would be some of the highlights in terms of legislative achievements, the laws, and the key issues that you think marked or would become the legacy of the 8th Parliament as the exits in a matter of hours?
On top of my head, you can look at how they were able to come out with the e-levy, even though it was very unpopular, legislation for me, and where I said from state capacity angle, that the state you should be able to attract resources to run its own affairs. So on that score, even though there were a whole lot of noise and all that, they came to a compromise that 1% on electronics taxation is important, even though that did not suffice, giving the kind of demands on our hands. But for me, the way they manage it and at the end of the day pass it into law, it was a big achievement for us. That going forward, if we are able to put our house in order and then be realistic, we should be able to do certain things, bearing in mind all the differences, and at the end of the day, arrive at something that will stand the test of time. That for me was a good one. And then I think last minute, the way they handle the affairs of the court and all that, yes, even though at a point in time, it even undermined the work of Parliament at the last end. But for me, the good aspect is that it brought to sharp focus some of the lingering challenges that confront Parliament, for which reason all of us have to sit down and see the way forward so that in the next election, all these things will not rear their ugly hairs in the work that Parliament does. Now, we still have a problem that 3 months to election, if the seat becomes vacant, what do we do? It's something we need to think about if we believe in representation. 2, we also want to find out I still have my challenge with the ruling of the Supreme Court is that when now the ruling that has been churned out, what it means that my understanding is that representation is going to be affected in a certain way. Yeah. Somebody in Parliament, and then he's giving a contract, 4-year contract, be there and represent our interests and our aspirations. 6 months to election, he has found a new love with another political party, and we still maintain him. It undermines loyalty, and it breaks what social contract that in Parliament we can put people in there, but when they get there, they can change their minds, and that is going to have its own consequence on the work of Parliament. Okay. But I think that that aspect of legislation and the matters that arose out of this give us a lot of learning lessons that going forward, we need to look at them and address them head on.
Thank you. Dr. John Osai-Kwapon, I want your highlights as well, but I do want a reflection first on how Parliament's handling of that e-levy controversy. And maybe I should include that passing of legislative instrument that allowed mining in our forest reserves, how that impacted public trust in the legislative process.
And I'm glad you highlighted especially the mining, the permission to be able to mine in our forest reserves. For me, that was a low point, given all the concerns that were already being expressed about the activities of, Galamsey, the need for environmental protection, and to think of the fact that there's a reason why we have forest reserves. There's a reason why we try to protect certain parts, of the nature that has been bequeathed to us. Definitely, for me, was a low point. I know that one of the unfinished business of this 8th Parliament was going to be a reversal of that, except that I don't think they have time to get that done. But it would have been very good to reverse that. With the e-levy, I understand the fiscal imperative of why the government needed that e-levy. I mean, we were in a fiscal crisis. Part of the IMF program eventually was how we are able to improve on our revenue generation. But I think that it was the ruling party was not willing, in my opinion, to listen enough to the concerns from the minority side. And so it became an either-or proposition, and both sides then hardened their stance on the e-levy. The ruling party touted it as, I can count the number of promises that were made in terms of what the e-levy will be able to do. But bottom line, the e-levy was about how we address our fiscal challenges and how we address, enough revenue. The whole e-levy cake thing, didn't also help with that conversation. Perhaps if we had treated it, in terms of building more consensus around it, maybe it would have generated more political support. Because if you look at the most recent Afrobarometer, is there only one key government policy that majority of respondents wanted it gone, compared to other ones, like, for example, the free SHS.
In fact, there's still a suit on it, I believe. After the NDC walked out, they took it up to court, and it's still pending in the Supreme Court, is it not?
Yes, it is. Yeah. And it's also one of those things that I think gave people a pause about the Supreme Court, right? In terms of, you have something that has lingered for more than 2 years with no decision on what they thought of it. And again, the policy has already been implemented, all of that. So now, for me, it even becomes, a moot point. But it also, for me, brings back my earlier point of, in the 8th Parliament, because of the numbers, you saw some of these important things now being, taken to the court, as opposed to resolving them, internally. Because the precedents that the court sets can have an impact on Parliament as an independent institution. And I don't want Parliament to get to the point where, because of legal precedents, it would appear as though it always, quote unquote, needs permission,
right,
from the courts before it can act. And I hope the 9th Parliament would guard against that. Okay,
right before we conclude, let me bring in Edem Agbana. He joins us via phone, and he's one of the new entrants. So we want to see or hear from him in terms of how prepared you are. Edem Agbana, thank you for joining us. MP-elect for Ketu North, congratulations. Tell us how ready you are, what challenges you foresee, and how you intend to navigate them.
Thank you for having me. Let me say good morning to all our cherished listeners. To Professor Asa Asante, my lecturer at the University of Ghana. And I appreciate him so much for his guidance and support. He really made me appreciate research in politics and why it is important as a candidate to take some key indicators seriously. And I can attribute my huge success to his guidance and support as well. So let me use your platform to appreciate him. Well, in a couple of hours, we will be sworn into office as members of Parliament. I must say, I'm looking forward to that moment with excitement. I am ready, I am prepared, and I am excited that I will be part of the 9th Parliament, which for me is Parliament, or it's a session that will be full of many, many historic moments. I am particularly happy that the Right Honorable Alban Bagbin will be the speaker for this session as well, because he comes into the office as the most experienced parliamentarian Ghana has ever had. And we all saw how he managed to effectively navigate through a very difficult 8th Parliament. And so when you have a parliament that about 42 of us entering are young ones, we are below the age of 40, you clearly will need an experienced leader to steer the affairs of the House. And so I am happy that he has been retained, or he will be retained as Speaker tonight. and I'm happy to learn under his feet and under the feet
Right.
of all the other seniors so that we can all contribute to effective lawmaking and play our role as our oversight responsibilities to put the government on their toes and ensure that we deliver on the mandate that the people of Ghana gave us on the 7th of December.
Right. Edem Agbana, thank you so much for spending a bit of your morning with us. We also have Jerry Ahmed. He's MP-elect for Wejagba. We just want to understand how these new entrants are feeling going into Parliament in a matter of hours. Jerry Ahmed, thank you for joining us. You're going into Parliament today. How does it feel?
It's humbling.
Kindly speak up for me. And what are your expectations?
It's humbling. For me, it's an expression that I just need to show appreciation to my constituents for their trust and support, and also acknowledge the significance of the swearing-in as a milestone in my political journey and a call to serve my constituency and my country, Ghana. It's really touching, and we can only say that I'm deeply humbled by that mandate given to me by the people of Wejagba, the very good people of Wejagba. Today marks the beginning of a journey to represent their voices and to represent their interests with integrity and with determination.
Thank you so much, Jerry Ahmed. That's MP-elect for Wejagba. And before we wrap up, Dr. John Osai-Kwapong, I want to hear from you. I mean, from your perspective, are there any structural reforms that you believe are necessary to strengthen Ghana's parliament independence, especially in what we saw with the judicial interference here and there and its relationship with the executive branch? Any structural reforms we should be looking at?
If we ever have a chance to amend the Constitution, one of the amendments that I will support is the removal of the requirement to have a majority of cabinet members selected from Parliament. I would really want to see the day where there's that strict separation of powers in our context, where if you're a parliamentarian, you're a parliamentarian. If you're a member of the executive, you are the member of the executive. I think it sometimes becomes a little challenging wearing both hats, and especially representing your constituents who may have challenges with a given government policy, but because you're a member of the executive and a minister of state, you may be, quote unquote, forced to be, to be part or to support something that would be at odds with what your constituencies may want or may not want. So that for me is one structural reform that at some point, if we can do some constitutional amendments, I would prefer, or I would love to see that. At the committee level, as I mentioned earlier on, some of those structural reforms have happened by ensuring that I think there are about 4 committees now, very significant committees that would be chaired by the minority party. That for me gives Parliament as an institution an opportunity to be able to exert more oversight, hopefully, over the executive. Now, the last thing I will quickly add is Ghana's Parliament is no different in terms of exercising oversight over the executive, in the sense that the literature will show you that when the ruling party at the presidency is the same as the ruling party, as the majority party in the legislative body, you tend not to get a lot of oversight. In the US, you see more oversight, let's say, when Congress is controlled by a different party and the White House by a different party. So I just wanted to add that caveat that Ghana is not unique in that, but hopefully the reconfiguration of some of these parliamentary committees can help do that.
Okay, let me wrap with Dr. Kwame Asah-Asante, but please include what lessons we can draw from the experiences of the 8th Parliament that will help our democracy.
Yeah, one of the lessons which I've already talked about is that if we really want to ensure that there is very little, work on the part of the judiciary relative to parliamentary work, then we need to consider the political question doctrine, that matters of politics have to be dealt with at the parliamentary level so that a judiciary will not come in. if we allow it to stay as it is now, obviously the judiciary will come in. And it's not their fault because there is no separation, strict separation of powers anywhere in the world. But once you have checks and balances, it tells you that other departments should serve as a check on the powers of others. And that is something that we must also deal with that. The issue of my brother Osai Kwapong says that he is looking forward to a situation where if we get opportunity, the mode of selecting members of parliament, the ministers of state, all from, from parliament should be looked at again. I have a contrary view. My view is that when we go on that trajectory, you are in the realm of what? Presidential system, which we have talked against so much that is why we developed this hybrid. But I also understand him that within the hybrid, you can have a dominant feature that looks like presidential. I'm sure that is where I agree with him, right? That yes, in the mode of the hybrid, let us have more dominant presidential feature. Then we can elect members of parliament, people into the executive as ministers outside parliament. Then that one, it helps us to build consensus easily, and then you see real critique of parliamentary work and all that. Because in the US, what they call lock rolling, yes, people get to parliament and they are not representing their parties; they are representing the national interest and all that. So we need to find out how we'll be able to deal with this. I am looking forward to a day that we'll be able to throw into legislation a specific number of people. In other words, cap, ministerial appointment. That let it be this number. The 60 John Mahama promise is going to work with. I always believe that it should be 19 and not, because important decisions are taken out of cabinet, isn't it? And the cabinet, the constitution tells you that you can run up to 19. So if it's 19, each minister, 16 regions, each one should have a minister who double as another minister. You supervise one ministry and one region. And the three major important, ministries can be handled by one person. Then 19, we can cut, our bill into that. And I believe that if we are able to do this, it should help Ghana in the 9th Parliament. I expect nothing but the best of performance in the 9th Parliament. But we want to say that when they go wrong, we will not, waste time at all and correct them and make sure that this democracy survives. I want to also thank my student for his kind remarks. I'm humbled by that, but I wish him well. And that I want to tell him that my doors are still open to him for any service that he thinks he requires from me. And I wish every MP the best of luck.
Thank you so much. That is Dr. Kwame Asah-Asante, political scientist and the head of European Studies at the University of Ghana. We also had Dr. John Osai Kwapong, CDD fellow. And of course, we spoke to some new entrants, Edem Agbana. And Kofi Ajay is in the studio with me. Kofi, unfortunately, we didn't have enough time to get through your slides, but I'm looking forward to it in subsequent bulletins. Thank you all so much. Now, let me leave you with this report on the Kantamanto rebuilding. Some traders are rebuilding their stalls, but will I be able to bring you that report? Well, before that, let's just take a quick break. We'll return with more on the AM show. Thank you for your patience and thank you for staying with us. So I was going to bring you a report about preparations for the inauguration. You know, all hands are on deck for the people who will be playing various roles on that day. Lampposts and roads leading to the Black Star Square have been draped in the colors of Ghana, red, yellow, green, very vibrant colors, creating a powerful visual and display of national pride. It is a good time to be a Ghanaian today. Maxwell Agbagba has been on the ground and tells us more in this report.
Preparations are far advanced for Tuesday's ceremony. I can tell you that all the people who will be playing critical roles on the day are here today, busily working, even on a Sunday. So on a normal day here at the Black Star Square, on a Sunday, it's quiet here. But this place is buzzing with a lot of activity this afternoon because of the event that would be taking place on Tuesday. We're privileged to have with us here the production designer here. He's going to tell us what the setup, is like here. It's very beautiful, draped in the red, yellow, green colors. Whilst we're coming here, we saw it right from the street from the 28th February road down to the Black Star Square here. It's all about the red, yellow, green, and then the Black Star, in the middle. Let's speak to the production designer, Tony.
I mean, it's, what should I call it? It's an area that has been set up to house Parliament, if you want to call it, because this is a parliamentary event. And we have section areas for different categories of people. And then we've been able to section it in different theme colors. I mean, of course, taking the theme from our flag, So we have the yellow section. And that's supposed to house the President-elect, the Chief Justice, the Speaker of Parliament, and the Vice President-elect. Okay, that's in the middle. In the middle of the yellow section. Yeah. To their right will be the spouses of the presidents and other dignitaries. That's the side. That's that side, yes. Yeah. And then to the left of that is going to be all the invited presidents that are coming. For the event, yes.
We already know 10 heads of state will be coming. We're told 2 vice presidents, 2 former presidents would also be in as well. Okay, so this is the setup for the yellow session. Okay, so now the green session?
Yes, so the green section is for all the dignitaries that have been invited to be here. So both the green section and the red section are going to be for anybody who has an invitation to be at the inauguration, and that's where they are going to be. Now beyond that is the black section. Okay. And the black section is going to house parliamentarians and then their spouses, both on the left and right of them. Yes.
Okay. So parliamentarians will be in the middle and their spouses will be
flanked on the sides. Yes, flanked on the sides. Okay. Yes.
And then we have the red section here. Also for invited
guests and other dignitaries. I don't really have all the names or numbers, but I mean pretty much that's what it is. Yes. Okay. That there in the middle is where the swearing will happen.
Okay.
Yes, right here.
This is where the president-elect will hold the sword after taking the oath, swearing the oath. He'll stand here and then hold the sword of authority.
Correct. That's where it's going to be, and that days in the middle between the presidential days and the invited president's days is going to be where he gives us his final speech. I mean, when he's sworn in, that's where he's going to give us his speech.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Great. I see some LED screens also being mounted. Can you tell us the purpose?
In the stands, both left and right of us are going to be where the general public are going to, sit. I mean, anyone can sit there. But then what we added on was to add on like giant LED screens, 3 section areas, just so they don't miss anything, just in case they can't see properly. They still have a better view of what is going on the ground. Now,
great. So you just heard from the production designer there, and we'll be speaking shortly to the Clerk of Parliament, who is also on the ground. He will be giving us details on what to expect on Tuesday. But just some minutes ago, I don't know if you can see from the stands there, that is the Navy, the Ghana Navy. The Ghana Navy, and they have been here rehearsing for the day. Just some minutes ago, they were here rehearsing. We are told that they will be mounting the first guard of honor for the president-elect, John Mahama. So he will be expecting the Navy. The guard of honor that will be mounted here will be by the Navy, and they've been rehearsing here. And they're resting, and I'm told they'll get back again to continue with the rehearsals. But we have the Clerk of Parliament here with us. Let's speak to the Clerk of Parliament.
Preparations are in advance. We are virtually done. It's just a matter of arranging the chairs, putting the rest of the carpet, tidying up the place, and then where we have to do the electrical works to ensure that microphones are working, everything is in order. Those are the fine details we have to do. Some embellishments here and there which cannot be done now It should be close to the eve of the event, probably tomorrow, by close of day tomorrow. The square would have been ready, would have been properly swept. The place will be locked up from public interference. Nobody comes in here to sweep the place and guarantee the safety and security of all Ghanaians who will be here that day. So we are on course, as you can see. 00 hours, the subsisting parliament would have dissolved. And we start the process. So the new business that can be transacted is the election of the speaker, which will be presided over by the clerk to parliament. And that will be done, will be seamlessly done, because nominations will be invited. We'll go through the process. What happened last 4 years, obviously was an aberration. Nobody desires any such thing. This time around, it does appear that there are some numbers to really help make definitive decisions, barring any hiccups. Which hiccups we would put our house in order to ensure that it doesn't occur. So once the speaker is elected, the speaker is elected.
So you're not expecting tensions like we saw last 4 years?
We are not expecting, neither are we saying that the possibility of occurrence, neither are we denying the possibility of occurrence. But what we are saying is that it's not a hung parliament. And this is, it's so obvious. It's not a hung parliament. Once you don't have a hung parliament, it's for the members with the majority seats to organize themselves and to say this is where we are going. Unless there's a split amongst them and they want to have 2, 3, 4 nominations, then you go through votings and all that. But we are hoping that all those things will be minimized. So once those things are minimized, simply we'll go through the process, nominations will be invited, and we would, depending upon if there's just one nomination, the clerk will declare the person as having been duly elected. If there are more than one, we'll go by secret ballot and go through the process. And once a speaker is elected, the Chief Justice will be in Parliament, will be attending upon the House, ready to administer the oath, to the Chief Justice. So once there is election, I'll invite the Chief Justice to, we invite the Chief Justice for the administration of oath and ask that the person elected as the Speaker, be conducted into the chamber for the administration of oath. The Speaker is conducted in the chamber. He is sworn in. After being sworn in, he is robed by the clerk. Having been robed by the clerk, he takes his seat as presiding officer. And the first thing he does, he calls the House to order. And having submitted to the will of the people, his first assignment is to swear members of Parliament elect in. And once members of Parliament elect are sworn in, then they elect deputy speakers. After electing the 2 deputy speakers, the job for the day would have been done. The Speaker suspends sitting for the House to reconvene at the designated venue, which is here, the Independence Square, for the swearing in of the President and the Vice President-elect. So this is a roadmap. And when we get here,
the program lineup.
The program lineup is very clear. We come in here. Obviously, the judiciary come in. They normally process into the chamber. We have designated points where they will process into the chamber. They take their seats. The Chief Justice goes to the dais to sit at the appropriate place. Speaker, entourage with the clerks at table enter the chamber and calls the House to order. We would have been expecting the President and the Vice President-elect arrival. Once they arrive, and then we have signals, the Speaker gives indication, invites the leaders, majority, minority leaders, to join us to receive the President and the Vice President at the central lobby here. So the President's entourage joins the Speaker's entourage into the chamber, and after that, the program now continues. Speaker welcomes them into the House and, indicates the main event for the day, which is administration of oath, invites the Chief Justice to proceed to the days, calls His Excellency the President and Vice President-elect in succession to take and subscribe to the oath. So that's it. The oath starts with the Vice President, and after that, you do the President, because that's the climax.
Okay, great. So you say that for now, like you rightly mentioned, all is set and we're ready.
All is set. Everything is set. We are ready. We're just waiting.
So it looks like all is set for Tuesday, and of course we'll bring you up to speed on everything in the lead up to that inauguration. And of course, again, today we'll keep you up to speed in terms of everything happening in Parliament. So don't change the channel. Now, Solagoon is Solagoon View Estate. It's a development of the luxury emerald properties, and they have some great news for all homeowners, residents, and all our clients. They say they're thrilled to announce that their loyal clients can enjoy their original prices this festive season. Now imagine waking up in a serene, gated community with top-notch infrastructure, secure documentation, and exciting recreational facilities available. Join this happy family by purchasing the few service plots that are available. And they have optional packages for your home, owning your dream, architectural designing, getting permits, and even helping you with your boundary wall. How do you get in touch with them? Call them on 0201-873-799. Thank you so much. That would be our show for today. I'm Sweetie Abochi. Stay for Joy News Desk coming up shortly. Please, for more news, log on to myjoyonline.com to keep you informed and updated. It's bye for now. Mwah.